really quiet.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I know Councilmember Johnson's right around the corner, so we'll open up item C2. Item C2 is consideration of conversion of the Del Mar Park hockey ring into a permanent pickleball court. And this item, once again, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Council.
Ready to have this discussion. Thanks, everybody out there, for waiting for this.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, the chairperson of the RPC meetings, Mr. Sedaris, he always laments that no one ever shows up to our meetings. And so I promised him I would get a lot of people there at one point. And he panicked a little bit when all these people showed up, you know. And I guess I joked that, well, if we talk about changing stuff, people do it. So stay tuned next time for when we turn the dog park into a BattleBots arena. So with that, tonight we're here to talk about a potential project related to pickleball in Morro Bay, kind of going over the history of why we've been looking into this and what the opportunity is, and also recognizing the challenges and trying to be really fair about what this potential project means to the community. We'll go over the background, talk a little bit about pickleball overall, the local club, the project, the costs related to the project, and recognizing that this is currently multi-use space. Staff is recommending the City Council direct us to whether a permanent court should be placed at the hockey rink at Del Mar Park. Background on pickleball, it combines elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong for folks who maybe aren't familiar with it. They're smaller courts. It's kind of a less movements required. It's lower impact. It's a positive for seniors. I think also for youth as well, because it's a smaller court. So you find it in physical education classes around the country as well. And we'll kind of get into potential opportunity here in Morro Bay for that as well. As you can see, you kind of play almost with like a ping pong paddle and a wiffle ball. You can see how they've also made the lines for courts on this tennis court. Basically, 4 pickleball courts fit on a tennis court size area. And there we go, clicker. Pickleball in Morro Bay, it's one of our largest sport programs right now. I should be clear, this is actually technically a city recreational program. The program is conducted on our behalf by the Senior Citizens Inc. group. They basically have an organization within their organization, the Morro Bay Pickleball Club folks, who are doing this. And so this is one of those kind of public-private partnership type things where we currently don't have the staffing to kind of do it at the level they're doing it, and we're very appreciative for that partnership. We have, in that partnership though, because it's currently a multi-use space, we have limited the hours. Obviously it's daytime right now. Part of the opportunity is that because this is such a large group, and because we've heard that other people would be happy to play on the weekends or other times, there's an opportunity to expand those hours. But it's hard to do it when we are, as a staff, as a city, recognizing it's multi-use. And so we're, much to their chagrin, not giving full use of it all the time for pickleball. We are trying to respect that it's still currently multi-use until such a time as that should change, if it ever does. This is not just a sport for seniors, and children play, as I noted, in physical education classes. About 150 people actively participate in the program here. That's probably larger now. I know that's the amount of folks on our email list. I think every day, on a daily basis, between 20 and 30 people probably participate during their times. This is large of an actor user group, indicates potential to continue to encourage more participation and enhance what we already have. And pickleball was a LEAP initiative, and court space was part of that objective. Getting into LEAP, the local economic action planning process, was a really good community kind of energizing process, and kind of get us, I think, excited about long-term economic development planning. I kind of call this kind of the shot in the arm economic development stuff we did. It got people excited and wanting to participate and thinking about Morro Bay. And as part of that, the City Council adopted the overall initiatives at their March 24th, 2015 meeting. LEAP program initiative number 4 called for the following: promote environmental assets of the area for residents and visitors to enjoy, and to expand business and tourism results. Key step number 2, that's the title of these steps, was key step number 2 of this initiative, called for expanding community inventory of recreational activities to promote tourism. And it specifically identified pickleball development as a community resource to improve community health and attract tourists. As part of the LEAP initiative, staff was kind of tasked with working with local enthusiasts to find appropriate court space opportunities. Finding viable space has been very challenging. Not only has staff reviewed it, the pickleball folks have as you may be aware, are a rather energetic and enthusiastic group. And so they've been doing a lot of research as well. But specifically, staff has tried to work at some of the most available likely opportunities, including with the San Luis Obispo Coastal Unified School District. They've declined interest generally at Morro Bay Elementary at this time, both for grass space. They don't want to put courts on the open space there by the community center. It's valuable space. And they've also pretty much at this point declined any retrofit of their blacktop area. We're going to continue to try to talk to them about opportunities and see if they have a change of heart. I will say that some of the areas we've looked at, they actually are leasing that facility out to quite a few groups, including a church that packs that place on Sundays. And some of the opportunity, probably the best blacktop, is where they park. And so it'd be hard for them to give that up. So we do recognize that they have challenges and interests as well, and we respect that. We've also looked at Coleman Park. It's pretty windy out there. Again, you're playing with a wiffle ball. It's probably just not conducive to this type of activity. Del Mar Park has remained the most viable option at this time, with existing hockey rink that could be converted, just to be honest. And that's why we're here. It's the most opportune location in the short term. This project is being designed in a way to potentially attract future sanctioned tournaments, and that's a key part of this when we talk about the conversion. While we recognize that these initial 4 courts may not be enough to qualify for a sanctioned tournament, we want to keep working on that. The City Council did adopt a new objective for the next fiscal year on continuing to look for even more space for pickleball, and so we will continue to do that. The project would place permanent posts in the ground along with netting. It would fully resurface using American Pickleball Association sanctioned, literally called pickle paint. All new 10-foot high fencing with windscreens along the fencing, and then removal of the rink boards. It's rotting in numerous places right now. While it could be neat to keep it there, other communities have found when they kept the boards there that folks considered it still a rink, and it caused some issues. Should this be fully just permanent courts, I think our interest is in trying to reduce the uses of other types, just because it's expensive to resurface it, and having bikes and skateboards and stuff would be difficult if we did the whole surface. I want to be clear about that, because I know there's been talk about other potential opportunities if we get creative. The ballpark estimate for this project at this level, and this is the whole surface, the posts, everything, with a 10% contingency is $37,800. Should be really clear. This is where we've done high level work so far, because we didn't want to go into bidding or anything like that if it just wasn't going to happen. Should the council say yes to this, this would become a public works project basically, and we would sit down with the pickleball folks and finalize and hammer out the final details of the project. We're going to have to go through some required bidding processes. It's likely that certain types of wage payments are required, and it could increase the cost of this. It might reduce it. We don't know. So these are not the final details yet of this project in terms of costs. Having said that, for fiscal review, this is a pretty impressive public-private partnership opportunity in terms of paying for this project. We have a really limited amount of park impact fees, park in lieu fees right now. About $17,800 is available for this project. We have more than that. We have about double that, but we really want to stretch that funding to other potential projects as well. For instance, adult fitness stations that would be maybe set along the Harbor Walk or something like that. We've looked at those projects. We know that our adults, including seniors in the community, are really interested in additional outdoor recreational activities that aren't just walking. And that's why pickleball has been so popular, is because everyone here loves the outdoors, and they all take advantage of that as well, but they want more physical fitness opportunities as well. They don't just want to go to our knitting and art classes, which, by the way, are awesome, and you should sign up for them, but we're also happy to offer pickleball and all that as well. Incidentally, I got an email from someone from Pickleball I think she said she was in her 70s, and she said she wanted outdoor volleyball. She said she didn't want to play against 50-year-olds, but she wanted outdoor volleyball. And that type of thing got me kind of interested. It's like, what are the opportunities for additional physical recreational activities that we could be providing to our seniors? Almost half our population is 55 and over, and we do have to recognize that. And right now, this is our only program outdoor for seniors, and honestly, for all ages. The Morro Bay Pickleball organization has raised to date $20,000 for this project, and the senior citizens have also pledged an additional $10,000. Been pretty impressed with how fast they did that. They said they were going to give themselves a deadline of January 31st, and they did it. And that's just, it's really impressive to be able to do it that fast. Depending on the project costs, if we can save money, if we can avoid using contingency, there's an opportunity that we could place some of the leftover revenue into maybe a fund for future court space. You do have an objective to look into that, so I think that's an opportunity. These aren't cheap projects. One of the challenges of this is if we built this somewhere brand new, we've heard in Cambria and other places it's $250,000 for stuff, and that's similar to what it cost us for our tennis court project at Del Mar. It was about $250,000 for that as well. So these aren't cheap projects by any means, and so part of the reason why we're looking at a conversion is because of the cost effectiveness of it versus a full construction project, which likely may have to happen in the future anyway because we don't really have a lot of other spaces to convert. We actually don't have a lot of available city land probably for these projects either. So that's an upcoming objective. We'll start that research process looking at opportunities for land and all that. Multi-use space. I want to be really clear here on and fair that right now this is a multi-use space. It's used by the roller derby folks, and you'll see down at the bottom I say that they actually have a permit. They come in and they practice on the courts. They don't do it as much in the winter because it's darker. This is a county-wide organization. It's not local in Morro Bay. It's not detracting from that, but I wanted to point out that we have a county-wide organization using it as well as a local organization in Morro Bay Pickleball. And we have parents that bring their kids out there to learn how to ride their bikes. In the past, this was obviously constructed 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago, about this point, about 21 now, for a hockey league. That's since gone away. Those kids must have grown up, and we no longer have that league. Part of the difficulty is quantifying overall usage. A lot of it is anecdotal because we don't have the ability to stand out there all the time and monitor and figure out who's using it all the time. So we have gotten feedback from the community about their uses, and I want to make sure it's really clear that there are folks who would prefer to remain multi-use because of the opportunities for a diverse array of uses. The trade-off, I guess, is enhancing the opportunity for one of our largest outdoor recreational activities for seniors. And along with the other things I've highlighted, that this is the best short-term opportunity currently for this. We can continue to research long-term opportunities, but right now this is pretty much it as far as we can tell because of the research we've done with the school district, with our other facilities. It's difficult to do it somewhere else. And so we just want to recognize that that's what could happen. In conclusion, maximizing opportunity for popular activities is important. We work hard to enhance our services for our local population. Court space at Del Mar Park is likely the best short-term opportunity for conversion. We recommend council directs us regarding potentially permanent courts at Del Mar Park. And that's pretty much it. I'm happy to take questions and have conversation.
Great, Sam. Thanks very much. How about if we start with Mr. Heading on questions? We'll go through council questions and then open it up for public comment and bring it back for deliberation. Mr. Heading.
Thank you again, Mr. Taylor, for the presentation. Currently, how many days a week are pickleball games happening, did you say?
All 5 days a week right now.
All 5 days a week right now? And
then they sometimes have tournaments and stuff on the weekends as well.
Right. And did your group or the recreation group do any calculations for possible return on investment for tournaments and attracting tournaments to Morro Bay with sanctioned courts?
We have not done any explicit calculations at this time. Part of it was having building this first initial small project was a way for us to test that return on investment.
Okay, great. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Great. Noah?
Yes, thank you. A couple quick questions. One, I know Monty Young was mentioned as an option in the staff report and at one point considered. I don't recall exactly why that was dropped as an option, an adaptation of Monty Young tennis courts to dual use. And I believe that was probably because of concerns from the tennis community, or do you have an exact?
I'm actually not clear on that. I don't recall that being in this staff report. Maybe it was a previous one. But I will say that we have had tennis players they have spoken. I'm saying they're not interested in conversions of tennis courts into that. There has been some inquiries from folks. Why don't we convert or use the tennis courts right next to the rink? That's more like a grass surface, a softer surface, so it's not applicable for pickleball, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's understood. And then there's no plan to lock the gate on that facility, even with the conversion. The gate would remain open.
We haven't gotten that far yet in the process. There has been discussion potentially of locking it to protect the surface. If it was a permanent pickleball space, locking it overnight might protect the permanence of the facility.
Okay. Can you define short term? Is that 5 years? I mean, it's probably hard to define, but
it's hard to define. But I'd say short term, 5 years is probably pretty accurate. I mean, we don't have a lot of funding. That's a big struggle for this. Is that we don't have $250,000 lying around for a project somewhere else, along with whatever the land cost would be. So we would really have to spend a lot of time seeking grant funding, and then any grant these days for parks especially is matching. So we would have a challenge there.
Yeah, and that sounds like something similar to what the bike park situation was, where we knew there was a big need, and we moved ahead quickly to make that happen, knowing that long term, that's more of a temporary facility. Long term, we're going to need to find some better options even for that, for a more permanent facility. Last question was, has there been any conversation about the roller hockey or multi-use opportunities with the rink? Because along with roller hockey, another group that does use it in an informal way is indoor soccer, pickup soccer, because of the luxury of being able to kick the ball really hard and not have to run a long ways to get it back. Has there been some conversation about some additional research into either reconverting that space back to that multi-use, when in the long term there's a better option for permanent pickleball to be constructed? Or
we haven't specifically discussed that. What we have talked about, and what we talked about at RPC though, was that there is potentially an opportunity to find other track or rink space elsewhere in the community. Because right now there's actually an adopted master plan for behind the teen center that is it's a very substantial area. It actually calls for a brand new skate park, basketball courts, and flat space that was intended for another use. But in talking with staff, we thought it would be actually a pretty good track space. It's very large, and we could potentially convert it to rink space instead.
Okay, great. Those are my questions.
Matt?
Yes, Sam, besides the roller hockey folks using it at certain times of the year, are there any other permitted uses or groups trying to use that? I know, I agree with you, Noah, that sometimes we have soccer folks coming in there and playing, but that's not formal.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of. That's been really hard. That's why it's hard to quantify, is because we don't have a lot of permits for it. The only folks that really use it on a permit basis is the city for pickleball. The roller derby folks did work previously to get a permit and ended up using it without one, because you can do it's been pretty free, and they now actually have acquired a permit, and so they are using it on a permitted basis.
And in terms of time allocation, how much time annually would that permit, or is that permit for?
I do not have that answer.
Got it. And then I think that's all my questions right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Christine?
Okay, question. Was there any discussion else with either the pickleball folks or staff about a maintenance fund, or perhaps fundraising to maintain it? Because, again, if we go this direction, that's another new facility that we're not currently maintaining. So any comment on that?
Yeah. So, and I kind of changed it on the slide a little bit. My hope was that leftover funding could be placed in a fund either for new space or maintenance. The pickleball folks they felt that if this was a protected space, brand new, it would have a very long shelf life, potentially 10 to 15 years, without having to super maintain the surfaces. And so that's kind of why I went away with potentially using any additional funding for future space. But that's one thing we talked about, was any leftover funding being used for maintenance. And I think that's a good opportunity, to be honest. When it does kind of disappoint me a little bit what's happened with the hockey rink, with the boards. And so I really want to make sure that we're not setting up something new and ignoring it. And part of that is staff should work hard to find that funding. And that's on me. Regarding in other opportunities, I have suggested, not now, but in the future, considering a small, maybe monthly fee to play pickleball. $5 a month can, based on the amount of users, could net $5 to $6 grand a year that we could put into a fund and keep it maintained. I've received feedback back on that so far that they do have a lot of, or they do have some at least lower income seniors that they do donation based right now. And some people don't give money or can't afford it, or maybe a donation instead of a required $5 could be the way we do funding, but that's hard to do, when you can't guarantee the revenue source. So we're going to continue to talk about that.
Okay, and then I don't know if you would actually know this question, but perhaps one of the speakers at their public comment time, in case anyone's going to talk about this, the Cambria courts, they're sanctioned. Do you know if they are sanctioned courts?
I do not know that. I'm pretty sure our pickleball ambassador could answer that.
Okay, so I would want to know if they were sanctioned. And then feedback. The city did place information, it placed a notice on the rink to get feedback. Could you tell us anything about the kind of feedback that you received from that? I think it was out there for several weeks.
Sure. Yeah, I put it out, I think, a month before the RPC meeting, and I did intend to put another one for this meeting. I apologize I didn't do that, but basically what we did is we put one of our very obnoxious yellow, pending land use things up to scare people into looking at it, and I put a sign up that basically said, hey, we're going to talk about this, we want your input. I think we received over 100 letters pro pickleball based on that, and we received 20 to 30 regarding please keep it multi-use. We received more, not directly to us, but we've seen a lot more social feedback related to roller derby, obviously, in the community, and that might be a demographics issue a little bit. But the direct contact the city received was more pickleball, likely because they're out there all the time. And so they saw the sign, but that was we wanted people who were using it to go see that sign. So,
okay, great. And then the Rec and Parks Commission, there was a 4-2 vote, 4 in favor of suggesting to the council that we consider this. Well, actually, they were in favor of the council looking toward pickleball, and then 2 were not. 1 person was absent. So in general, if you want to just give a synopsis about what the 2 no votes were about, and what were they hoping? Were they no to the conversion, or were they hoping for something else before the conversion? If you could kind of give us an update on that.
I think they largely were just concerned about the multi-use issue and wanted to keep it that way. I should have followed up on that meeting. I apologize. I should have reviewed that meeting so long ago. But in general, I think the feedback I got from them was that they recognize that there are families that are out there using it for multi-use space. And also the roll. I mean, they did hear from the roller derby folks at the last meeting, and a lot of the comments from both sides were very professional and also passionate. And I think that honestly moved some of them to kind of rethinking just one use.
And then I think, too, you mentioned the Parks Master Plan. Is there a timeline for where you talked about the things that would happen behind the teen center? Where is that in the process?
So yeah, that's a specific master plan to the teen center. To be honest, that's probably a longer term thing as well because we don't have the funding. What we're hoping is we're going to start kind of working on potential grants for that as well, and we'll keep reviewing that. That's just a substantial project. So what I was going to say was the master plan itself was adopted in 2005, so it's been a while. It looks really nice. I hope we can work on it, and I think that current staff at the rec division is interested in pushing that forward.
Right, and so I think that having an alternate space for any kind of rink is not likely to happen in the next year or 2.
Correct. I agree with that.
Okay. All right. Great. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any questions at this time. I'll open it up for public comment. I just want to get a show of hands of people who are speaking to this item so we have an idea. Okay, so looking at the hour and trying to get through about 25 people or so. So I'm going to try to compromise a little bit and go maybe with 2 minutes on public comment so we can get everybody in and still get through the course of business. So I was going to ask our city clerk to set up for 2 minutes. And at this time, I'll open up for public comment. For those who'd like to speak to this item, please come forward.
Mayor Irons, the council members, and ladies and gentlemen present tonight. My name is Trish DeVega. I'm a resident of Cambria, and I'm a member of the Cambria Pickleball by the Sea. Can you tell? We built courts, and they started playing on them in September of last year, and it was almost $200,000 for the courts. And we have so many people coming out and enjoying themselves. There's so much camaraderie. There's physical activity. What the statements have been made about it's a good sport for either small children or seniors like myself, and that's true. I have a 10-year-old grandson. He loves to play. My 6-year-old grandson, not so much. I really encourage Morro Bay to promote pickleball within the community, because it does add a lot. It's a lot of fresh air, a lot of good physical therapy, just playing, and a lot of physical activity. Also, it's good for local businesses. We have noticed in Cambria there are more visits to the chiropractor, to the doctor, pharmacies, and if we sell sports, even more so. But it's a lot of fun. You make a lot of great friends, and it really is a wonderful sport, so I hope you will consider it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If we could just have wave your hands, please, so we can, thank you, that'll work. Thank you very much. Or paddles, it looks like.
Okay. I would like to thank the mayor and the council to listen to my little 2-minute speech.
Can you please state your name?
Elliot Gong.
Thank you.
Okay. What I learned about Morro Bay Pickleball. I've lived here over 35 years, and in that time, my daughter has grown up and was a student at Del Mar, and my wife was also a part-time teacher at Del Mar. And so we spent a lot of time at Del Mar Park. And in that time, I've seen people play tennis, and I've seen people play basketball, but I've never seen anybody play hockey in that rink. It's always empty. The first time I actually stepped on the rink was last April, because some newspaper article said that one fun way to exercise is playing pickleball. So I started playing pickleball once a week, and I play about 4 or 5 times a week. Each session is 2 hours, and there could be 20 to 50 people at a time. Now, what I learned, besides the health benefit, is it's a very social gathering. I've met not only Morro Bay residents and visitors from places as far as Tennessee, Florida, Idaho, and Canada. Sure, we exercise, but we enjoy each other's company, exchanging experiences and ideas. But critics says that Morro Bay Pickleball is only for old people. Well, that may be due to the limited court time that it's allocated. It is only 2 hours a day, midday, Monday through Friday. That's the only time that pickleball is available, because of the way the nets have to be placed with volunteers and so forth and so forth. Now, imagine if the dog park, the bike park, or even the community garden were only available at those limited times. Who aside from retired seniors would most likely be able to participate?
If you can summarize, please.
Okay. By having full-time courts with nets like the tennis courts, pickleball will be more accessible for people of all ages. And we're a small group of devoted fans, yet we've already raised a substantial amount of money to transform a long-neglected, run-down property into a more spruced-up community venue for the benefit of all. And that's what we're just trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we've shortened it to 2 minutes, but I'm trying to get everybody through and still continue on with some of the other business that we have tonight. So if you come forward, if you could please be prepared for 2 minutes. We certainly want to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Julie Jensen Chow. I'm a resident of Los Osos. This is Eleanor Chow. I am a member of Central Coast Roller Derby, and just to give a little bit of background about my personal experience with Del Mar Park, my daughter plays there often. It's where she learned to skate. She goes there to practice skating. I play roller derby now, but as a 21-year cancer survivor, I will move on to be a dragon boater once I retire from derby. And I patronize many Morro Bay businesses. Kind of Los Osos and Morro Bay are basically my playground for the most part. I also just wanted to give a brief bit about roller derby because I believe there are a lot of misconceptions about it. Our organization is a local nonprofit community organization who just happens to play roller derby. We donate to many charity organizations. Each bout it's a different one, and not a full list, but some of them are, they usually support charities that exist to empower women. That's part of our mission statement. Family Care Network, Woods Humane Society, Autism Spectrum Network, Women's Shelter, RISE, Relay for Life. And we volunteer at local organizations as well in Morro Bay. For Morro Bay, we've been at the Harbor Festival, the Avocado and Margarita Festival, the car show, the Miracle Miles for children through Family Care Network. And the sport is really a true sisterhood and brotherhood. It's really all-inclusive. It was started as a grassroots movement by women, but it's the most inclusive group that I've ever come across. It's pretty amazing. And the real issue here is it's not a right or wrong. Pickleball brings a lot of great things to the community of Morro Bay. So does roller derby for its community. And as far as the whole age issue goes, the oldest player right now is 80 years old. And our players, 50s, we have players in their 50s and so on. The multi-use facility is the major thing. And I suppose that's my time.
Going to have to ask you to wrap it up, please.
Okay. I just have a few questions. So not right or wrong, either group, but if it's decided that way, it will be black or white. It will only be used for pickleball if it goes to single use, no other uses. And questions are, has the city of Morro Bay surveyed its community? What percentage is in favor, if so? And if the tournament space is not guaranteed in the beginning...
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up, please. I'm sorry.
All right. And then finally, will the city make accommodations for other sports that will, if the pickleball courts go in, then be homeless? So will they invest an equivalent amount of money towards other uses that will lose their homes? Thank you.
Thanks.
May she say something? She wanted to. She's somebody different. Is that okay? One thing. You've got to say it. I ran it out of time. Okay. She's too shy.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Public comment is open. If please come forward. If you could get ready to come up, we want to get as many people as through this as we can. If you're ready to speak, come on up.
Hi, my name is Ruth Stewart. I'm here to obviously talk about the pickleball multi-use court. I am a San Luis County resident. I come to Morro Bay quite often, actually every few days. It's beautiful down here. As Mr. Taylor concedes, the space is multi-use right now. Kids on scooters, bicycles, skateboards, kids playing futsal, which is the soccer that's encompassed in the rink. This conversion, if it were to happen, would exclude all these groups. Sorry. Right now it encompasses the majority of the community who can't possibly fit in everywhere else. There are lots of sports like football, soccer, leagues and stuff like that, but there is a large group of the community that doesn't fit into these little stereotypes. They need to find other places and places that they belong, places that they fit, things that they can do. Pickleball's great, roller derby's great, soccer's great, skateboarding, it all gets everyone out in the community, but that's what it is. It's a community-used space. It's a little run down. It needs help. And I really hope you guys keep it as a multi-use space so that way the entire community can continue to grow in it, basically. So our children can grow in it. So our grandparents and brothers and sisters and everyone can use it without feeling excluded for any reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Kathy Ponting, and I'm currently the chairperson for the steering committee for the Morro Bay potential permanent pickleball courts. I'll keep this very brief. Hopefully you did read the documents that we sent to you. Just to give you an idea of what our group does, we've been very busy this past several months. We've hosted 2 tournaments, and we've hosted 2 pickleball in the park events that have brought numerous people from the local community as well as out-of-town people. These particular events have been revenue generating events, but most importantly, a lot of the stuff that we do is even more important than the revenue generating. We've held 9 clinics with over 150 participants. We've taught the Special Olympics from Dubai that came through last July on the way to the Los Angeles Special Olympics Games. And in fact, this Thursday, we're hosting a clinic for 40 of our young Morro Bay kids between the ages of 5 and 10. That's to us very important, how we can give back to the community. The mere fact that we've put forth a huge effort with a successful fundraising, I hope you can see how dedicated we are to improving the city. Morro Bay has the potential to be a destination, a pickleball destination. Many pickleball enthusiasts and snowbirds would love to come here due to the perfect climate. We've heard about the rough estimates of what this facility was going to cost, but I think the most important thing is we've had some very good conversations in the last few days that our thoughts and proposal on how this can be built can still remain multi-use. We're entertaining the thought of keeping an inner perimeter where there's still a track, there's still access to bicycles, scooters, skateboards. The specific court would be off limits, but I think that should be maybe a game changer tonight, that it could be multi-use. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good evening. Hi, Council. I'm from Napomo. My name is John Wallace. I've been here to to Morro Bay several times at playing and at a fun day. We have a similar situation in Napomo where we have a multi-use area. We worked with the county parks and we actually raised money and resurfaced like one of the courts, and we have 2 basketball courts and another tennis court. The multi-use thing is possible. We all work together. I hope that, this group of people, mostly from Morro Bay, and you guys can work together and make something like this happen. It is a financial boon. I'll tell you that every time I go to a place to play in a tournament, I am spending 2 nights, every meal in the town that I'm at, along with several hundred other people, including their families. It's not just the individuals. So financially for Morro Bay, it's a great idea to have this, whether it's multi-use or not. Hopefully you can eventually see the benefits to having full courts where you could have a sanctioned tournament that will bring people here from all over. We have them from Texas, Florida, Canada, Oregon, Arizona, coming to our courts to visit. And when they visit, they're spending money in the town. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Bruce. I'm a resident of Las Rosas and a member of Central Coast Roller Derby. I just want to say I'm really excited to hear about what pickleball is doing for Morro Bay. It's really awesome because as a person who plays sports, I know the camaraderie that they're talking about, and it's very, very encouraging to hear it. But as someone who plays roller derby and is getting squeezed out of every place that we have to skate, I am heartbroken. And I am sad, and I feel really, really defeated tonight because, you know, we bring in revenue too. In fact, this weekend we have a game at Santa Rosa Park. It's the last place that we have to skate. And the revenue that we bring in, we donate. We didn't bring it. We never thought about actually, oh, hey, let's use this money to give ourselves a space because we believe in community. And I feel really sad. And I feel like you guys as a council and as a city want to take care of every member of your community. I heard you say all access when you were talking about getting to the beach. I mean, you guys are into taking care of your whole community, not one elite group, but your whole community. And when we generate the revenue that we will generate this weekend with the people who are coming to watch, we'll be donating to the women's shelter. And every single game we donate to another community organization. So I wish we could bring you $20,000 to resurface Del Mar, because that's why nobody skates on it. It's not because of the boards. It's because the surface is really, really rough and it hasn't been maintained. That's why. It's not because they grew up. It's because it's dangerous. But, you know, we're used to dangerous. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. I'm Jeff Napier. I'd like to talk about numbers a little bit. About 18 months ago, when pickleball first started in Morro Bay, there were 5 people who got together and played pickleball. And now 18 months later, we have 150. And I think it's going to continue to grow exponentially. At the same time, I've been to the park a number of times, and I've seldom seen the multi-use that we're all talking about. I've seldom seen it actually taking place. I have occasionally seen a parent and a child on a bicycle in that area. And I understand that, you know, roller hockey and the other roller sports are unfortunately being squeezed out of facilities throughout the county. And I understand that the facility is no longer up to the standards that the roller sport people need. And, you know, I wish they had the money to you know, repair the facility for their own purposes or some similar facility. I think this is an interesting opportunity for the city because the senior citizens in the Morro Bay pickleball people have raised $30,000 that we can invest in this facility to get it back up to par. And in the future, if it should happen that pickleball is not the big sport that has become in America at this time, 20 years from now, the facility will still be in good shape and it'll be easy to convert. It's not like, you know, a skate park or something with all kinds of strange shapes. It'll just be a surface that can be converted should that need ever arise. Those are the points that I can think of at this time. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. It's 9 o'clock and I'm sorry I'm here, but I'm here for a purpose. I haven't had dinner. I'm hearing that money is counting more than the community now.
Can you share your name with us, please?
Jane Von Kay, 2755 Hemlock Avenue. I've been here 35 years on the same property on my street, and this park was opened when I came here in 1980. It's multi-use, it always has been. I raised a lot of the children as a nanny and used that rollerblade rink, and yes, it's not kept up, and it's a shame. The boards do get rotten, and the surface needs to be done. And we don't have the money privately, and I've talked to lots and lots of people that could not be here tonight because their children have to go to bed. And one brave young mother waited for hours out there with her 2 children to come up and talk and say, yes, we all use it. The notice was put up, and I did not see it until after that meeting, because when I go to the dog park, I didn't go past the rollerblade rink because I don't raise children anymore. But always somebody is there to talk to, and I've talked to them and said, they're going to do this and turn it into a permanent rink. I'm a senior, and I stayed off tennis for a year to have my hip done, but I couldn't stand pickleball only because somebody also said that it spoils your swing. So I wish that we could have a lot of swing for tennis, that is. So I wish we did have the money to do something about the surface. But there are people there. And when you put that notice up, there was a group of young men that used to come and play soccer nearly every night, 4 or 5 nights a week. And they believed that the pickleball was going in. And I haven't seen them since November. And that's really sad. Maybe it should have been printed in 2 languages, as everything in California seems to be. And so I really would like you to consider leaving it the way it is. They play for the morning and not making it permanent. Yes, it's a great idea. But we had a swimming pool at the school, and that got filled in. Why? It could have been fixed. We had a skating rink for the children, and the last 4 children I raised, the youngest was 2, and he was just starting out, and that got sold. So there's something wrong when you say, yes, we want all this activity and this outdoor stuff, which I thoroughly agree with. But it seems that it's coming down to money and a bigger group against the few people that we have that could come tonight. But lots of people expressed their disdain about having it as a permanent rink.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good evening. Greg Whitfield. I live
Can
in
you
Cambria.
lift the mic up, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Greg Whitfield. I live in Cambria. From the USA Pickleball Association, they have a national website that has a places to play site on it. And just as much as you go looking for dog parks, people like me are going looking for pickleball places to play. I'm an ex-tennis pro. I taught tennis at a country club, and it doesn't ruin my swing at all. I'm playing pickleball exclusively now. And there's tournaments that it's an international sport. That's the fastest growing sport going on. And this county is booming with it. The country's booming with it. And you're faced with Del Mar Park with a surface that's not suitable for skating and really not suitable for playing pickleball either, however they're doing it. It's concrete. There's no surface down there. The ball skids. You got a white backdrop. It's tough to see. And the ball just doesn't react right. They need to be resurfaced. And I just stand in full support of pickleball because of the culture, the people. It's a game in which someone like me who is an ex-tennis pro and head pro at a country club is playing with these people back here and having a blast doing it because it's a type of sport that is a great equalizer. It's not a power game. It's a game of finesse, control, and has a lot of fun activities to it. When you're living in Bakersfield, Visalia, places I go to play pickleball, they are clamoring to come to the coast when it's hot. And the people in Arizona are clamoring to come to the coast when it's hot. And then you have the part of the country where it's cold. Morro Bay is set for a place, and there is a common thing if you look up for images for pickleball. It says pickleball rocks. I can't think of a better image for Morro Bay with their rock saying pickleball rocks right here. Thank you.
Just wave, please, and thank you.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Betts. I have been born and raised here in San Luis Obispo, have been on skates at Flippo's Surfside Skate Harbor since I was 8 years old. So like him being the guy that's going around looking for places to play pickleball, I'm a 40-year-old woman looking for places to skate with my 16-year-old daughter and my 15-year-old niece, and my 18-year-old nephew, and now I have a 5-month-old niece that someday I'm going to teach her how to skate too. I know I'm not going to be going as fast as I normally do, but hopefully I'm going to be able to teach her. And hopefully I'm going to be able to teach her in a space that's meant for the community, in a space that I've grown up in a space that I'm comfortable in a space that I know that's safe, and I know everybody wants to be there and have a good time. I'm excited for the pickleball people. I think it's a great revenue for the city. I really do. It's a shame we can't share. We're a community, and we always have been, and that's one of the biggest strengths that we've had on the Central Coast as far as I can tell growing up. I've watched this place be just farmhouses and open land and see what it is now. It's amazing, and I'm so blessed to be here. And so are all of the seniors that want to play pickleball, and so are all of the rest of us that want to play the other things that we want to play. We're all equally blessed to be here, and we're all equally thankful. And we all want to be here and have a good time. It's multi-use for a reason, and hopefully it can stay multi-use. We're not able to be there in the midday for a couple hours and have it be roller derby or roller hockey or any of our other sports, because unfortunately I can't retire for a great long time. And if I was able to be there every day for 2 hours, I would gladly take it, because there's nowhere else that I can go besides the street. And let me tell you, street skating isn't for the weak-hearted. It's a pretty rough job, but I do it because it's what I love. Just like the Central Coast. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment?
My name is Ginny Rarick, and I'm a newbie here as far as playing pickleball is concerned. My daughter is a very avid pickleball player, and I have learned to really love this game. And because of my particular status here, being a senior citizen, on my 89th birthday last month, we had a family reunion in Cayucas. And one of our events was pickleball for the family. And it was incredible for me. It was one of the most exciting times of my life. My whole family, cousins, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, my sisters, brothers, and these kids, all of us, all came out to play pickleball. And it was incredible to watch. Some of them thought that this was just for old people. They were not interested in the game. But when they started playing and they understood the fun of the game, all of them came together. And that's the joy of pickleball. Pickleball is a sport for all ages, all the time. And it's a family sport, and family is certainly one of the wonderful things that we have to share here in Morro Bay and Estero Harbor. And I hope that we, at this time, go ahead and have permanent pickleball courts here, because as it's limiting the amount of people that can play pickleball, and it is potentially growing, and it's the most well-liked new sport in the whole United States. So we can only expect it to get more and more popular. So we need a place where people can come and play. Now it's just specified hours that they can play, and they're restricted so that it isn't available unless they aren't working or something. So if it was open and to all the community all the time, all the families would be able to come and enjoy it whenever they had the opportunity. Thank you very much, and I hope we go ahead and go with the court.
Thank you. Just waves, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Schwarzman. I also go by Karen Rosen. I live in Morro Bay, and my husband and I, Larry, moved here a year and a half ago from Los Angeles. And I'm here to talk about that social ties may be as important as exercise and diet as far as longevity. I know you probably saw this on the Lester Holt News, but there has been a study, not just anecdotal, that shows that having a lot of healthy social relationships during adolescence and late adulthood could help you lead a healthy life. And that previous research shows that aging adults live longer if they have more social connections. So having moved here, it's hard to make friends, and I don't have any children. A lot of people in the audience from the pickleball side, children have grown up. So it's easy to form ties when you have children. You have schools, you have activities for the children, and you can meet a lot of people. Pickleball has helped me a lot, just meet a lot of friends on the court. It's a very social group, and I hope to live long enough to play when I'm 89, but the longer we live, the more we can spend money in Morro Bay. And the less that we will have to call on the services of the fire department, which means we will spend less money for their overtime, and we could spend money doing other things. So I don't mean to be frivolous, but really I think people that are my age, I'll be 65 in April, have limited opportunity. We can't skateboard. Some of us can surf, but we can't skateboard, and the young kids can do all that. They have a choice. Pickleball is one of the few things that people our age can do, and the social ties make it an important sport. And just to show you, I've purchased this in the community, and this beautiful cover in the community, contributing to the financial status of Morro Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's more for public comment, if you can get ready for the next speaker, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Barbara, and I'm from Paso Robles. I'm the president of the Paso Robles Pickleball Club. And I just wanted to mention that it'll be almost 2 years now that we put in permanent courts, and before that we had about 25 paying members, and now we have 85 paying members with about 150 people on our mailing list. And I don't know how you work it here, but I know that the City of Paso Robles and the Rec Department are making money off of our membership dues, and I think that's a good reason to have some permanent courts here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Susan Craig. Wow, was that loud? Morro Bay resident and business owner. Before I read this, I want to just speak to, there's been a lot said about skating and bicycling and soccer. There are other options in the park for those activities. There's the basketball courts, and then there's also the grammar school. So they won't absolutely be homeless. As we well know, there are many facts about pickleball that have already been submitted to the Park and Rec Department, and they are included in the report handed to the City Council. There's no need to revisit each and every one tonight. However, I would like to speak to the benefits I have seen to the players on the pickleball courts. I personally have witnessed positive physical and emotional improvements to those who participate. We are a friendly bunch, greeting newcomers with a smile. Morro Bay Pickleball has a reputation of being a great place to play. It is a social event as well as an opportunity to stay fit. Pickleball benefits active adults, men and women, boys and girls, families and teens. We who play pickleball daily at Del Mar Park would like to make pickleball available to everyone, families, kids, teens, vacationers, weekenders, and our residents who work all week and only have after work or weekends to play. Having the permanent nets would make this possible. We are excited to introduce pickleball to some elementary children on Thursday. They may go home and talk about it to their parents, and this will open up an opportunity for the family to get involved. We would also like to reach out to the high school's PE program. Many high schools around the country are adding pickleball to their physical education program. We who play pickleball daily at Del Mar Park want to contribute to the city where we live. Updating the area in question will give Del Mar Park a much-needed facelift, making Del Mar Park a place to be proud of once again for those of us who live in Morro Bay. This is very important. I see the city of Morro Bay as a progressive one. We must be progressive or we could miss an opportunity to develop one of our city's main industry. Active adults look to cities to visit. Let's see. I will leave the City Council with this. The Parks and Rec Department have given you the recommendation. The Tourist Board agrees, and we have support of Del Mar Elementary. I do not see how the City Council could miss an opportunity like this. It is a step forward of what is happening now, and it keeps Morro Bay on the cutting edge.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
No script. Good evening. My name is Steve Sidwell. Along with Kathy Thomas, we are the USAPA District Ambassadors for Pickleball for actually 4 counties, Santa Barbara, San Luis, Monterey, San Benito. We're 2 of 63 district ambassadors countrywide, which are part of 1,200 ambassadors in the whole USA, representing a membership of 11,000 people with an estimated 180,000 pickleball players. So pickleball is big, but I don't think I got to convince you guys of that. What I do want to tell you about quickly is our experience in Paso Robles. 3 years ago, there was no pickleball in that city. We were graced with a fellow that moved up to our area from Orange County, who was a USAP ambassador, said, I think I want to start pickleball in Paso Robles. We found a city roller rink, how coincidental, that was being underutilized. We started putting up our temporary nets, put down taped lines, and it worked quite well. We started getting more and more and more participants. We said, gosh, I wonder if there's any chance we could convert this into a pickleball facility if we paid for it. City had the same concerns. Well, now it's multi-use. Who are you going to disenfranchise by making it a permanent use facility for pickleball? So they insisted, and we agreed that we needed to take a survey. They had to put signs out that said, we're planning on converting this to a single-purpose pickleball facility. If you have any complaints, here's a phone number. Come right next door and talk to us. We posted that information for 3 months. We had one person that came up and voiced an objection. In the meantime, our group of 6 people had grown to 100. We had 3 meetings with the rec department, 2 with the city council, the end result of which is we have 5 dedicated, first-class, world-class pickleball facilities. We are becoming a pickleball destination. We've hosted major tournaments. We continue to do so. We're partnering with all of our other sister facilities in San Luis Obispo County. And I think you guys are in a perfect position to follow this model to continue to promote this fabulous sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Come on up. Thank you.
I'll be really brief. My name is Jan Smith. I'm a San Luis Obispo native, and I have been playing pickleball in Morro Bay for the last several months. It has been a real life changer for me and my husband. But aside from that, I'm listening to everybody comment about different things, and it sounds to me like no matter what the decision is here tonight, that surface is going to have to be redone for any type of sport that's played there, because it really is unsafe for hockey and it is unsafe for pickleball. There is a very beautiful new hockey rink at Santa Rosa Park in San Luis Obispo. There are dedicated tennis courts all over the county, and I don't know of any dedicated pickleball courts at all. And you can go, and we have the skate park down there. I come here because that's where I get to play pickleball. And if I go to anywhere in San Luis that has temporary courts, I have to stand in line for 45 minutes to get to play one game because it's 3 temporary courts set up. And I think that this area needs to have something that is dedicated, since it has to be resurfaced anyway, and I think it's a win-win. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all know me. I'm Kathy Thomas. You've seen me many times. I'm actually only going to say a couple of things. One is I passed out a piece of paper that has a yellow sheet on top that compares roller derby and pickleball. This was taken from the national websites of both and also from the local websites. Number 2 is that there's been a lot of chatter that involves us making up data. I just want to make it very clear that we have not made up any of the data, including the Del Mar Park stats that you've got in front of you. These are the sheets that are from the daily attendance sheets for pickleball. Anybody who wants to see our raw data, I've got it available and I will hand it to you. The third thing I wanted to mention is that pickleball is one of the few sports I've come across, I actually don't know that there's any other sport, where wheelchair rules are in effect when they want to play with able-bodied players. So if a wheelchair athlete wants to get on a court with 3 of us who are playing pickleball, we have special rules for that, and they are able to do that. We can't do that at the court right now because they can't get over the hump, because there's a thing. But that's one of the few sports that I've ever seen that was allowed able-bodied and wheelchair on the same court at the same time. I think this is a great sport. Whereas we can't do what some of them are doing, they can do what we are doing. And I think that our partnership with Del Mar Elementary School is just going to make things even better and more effective. I hope you approve this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy.
I'm Robert Thomas, and I've been following her for years. Real quick. 2 years ago, Kathy and I and 3 other people were standing here. And in request answer, Noah, the question we presented 2 years ago was, how about double striping one of the courts at Monte Young so we can play pickleball? I didn't want this to start. All I wanted was play pickleball. Well, we were told no. So we went off to Del Mar, and as you all know, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. I've taught over 300 people this game. A lot of them are sitting back there right now. I've got another dozen people I'm teaching this week alone. It keeps growing. So it sticks. This is sort of your problem. You have two choices in a sense. What would happen if you said to the tennis players, you've got to put your net up, you got to take it down, and you got 2 hours a day? What would happen if you did that with the basketball players? You have 2 hours a day, put your bat up, get it out. Well, that's what you're telling pickleball players every single day. You have 2 hours and you're out of here. Think about that. We're seniors, we should be treated equally. We should have equal access. So if you're not going to make 4 dedicated courts, then you have one other option. And you're not going to, the tennis players aren't going to like it. And that other option is you take Monty Young and you make it a double-use court, and you double stripe both of those courts there so pickleball players can go play on that all day long. It's going to be packed. The tennis players are going to hate it, but if you're going to have multi-use courts, then make Monty Young a multi-use court too. Don't exclude seniors simply because they play pickleball. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. 5 more minutes on public comment, and then I'm going to conclude public comment so we can get through the night.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Sidwell. And
Can you move the mic down, please?
You can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Bonnie Sidwell, and I'm a Paso Robles resident that is addicted to pickleball. I play pickleball in Paso Robles, Atascadero, Morro Bay, Cambria, and San Luis Obispo. I love the sport, and as many people have said tonight, a lot of us seniors, it's so healthy, it's social, it's so good for us. Another gentleman that spoke tonight said about the revenue that it'll bring into your city, and that's so true. I'm wearing a medal tonight that I won at a tournament in Escondido. We were down there for 3 nights, staying in a hotel, eating every single meal out, and also shopping. So if that were to happen in Morro Bay, just think about it. When you have tournaments and you have 150 people or more coming, not everybody is going to be staying in an RV. They're going to be staying in hotels, and they're going to be eating out and playing pickleball. So my heart goes out to the younger people, the roller hockey people. I understand their dilemma, but this facility that we're trying to convert for Morro Bay needs to be repaired anyway. And so I think it would be really good for Morro Bay to go ahead and vote to put in permanent pickleball courts.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close. Are you the last one? Okay, come on up, and then I'm going to close public comment, and so we can get going on discussion and getting this item discussed. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Kelly. I'm from Atascadero, and I hadn't been to Morro Bay 2 years until we started playing at Monty Young 2 years ago. And now I come, I eat, I drink, I shop, I spend a lot of time. I play a little pickleball. But I spend a hell of a lot of money, which I know they don't like to hear, but that's what I do. And before that, I hadn't even been here. I just didn't come. It was like, why come? Tascadero can take my money, San Luis can take my money. Pickleball. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you. If you can keep it down. So with that, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to council for discussion. I appreciate everybody's comments. Sorry we had to reduce it to 2 minutes, even though many of you spoke past the 2 minutes. I was trying to get as many public comments as we could to get through this, and we just had to conclude public comment to get on with this. I think we've had a lot of input on helping us with decisions and your thoughts. We'll get into discussion. First off, I just want to say, Kathy and Robert Thomas, I think, the founders of this in Morro Bay, from my experience and from what I understand. So I know you two have worked really hard at this. I just want to say thanks for that. If you could just, no applause. Please, no applause. We need to get through this. I just want to, recognize Kathy and Robert for their work. So let's keep the applause and everything down, and we'll get through the deliberation. Many of the comments out there, I think the correlation, there's comments about, treating us equally and how we would set up, nets, for 2 hours if everybody had to do that. This is just one of those conversations that councils have the privilege of discussing, and the community discussion on one or the other, or in one case, multi-use. I think one of the correlations I was thinking about as a dog owner, there was a interest in having a dog park, and there was quite a bit of discussion and competition on whether or not we should have a dog park or not. And actually, it was a volunteer group that came together with the funding to do the dog park. And as a resident, I thought, well, why shouldn't I have that kind of, I don't have kids, but I sure would like to have my dog, to be able to go to the park too. So it was an interesting correlation to me. And, considering the interest in the pickleball, I'm definitely supportive of it, and I'm interested in how we proceed in the discussion with it being permanent. I want to thank Kathy. Kathy, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Ponting. Thanks, Kathy, and Chuck, and many of you all today when I went down and talked with you about some of my thoughts and concerns on there, and it seemed like there were some, folks being receptive to those thoughts. Having permanent nets set up and then maintaining some multi-use, I'm wondering what the survivability or success rate of something like that. Where I'm going with this, I'm supportive of moving ahead on the permanent setup of pickleball courts. I would like to have the discussion, which I had with some of you out there earlier today, because I think, there are still folks that utilize that in the evening, as I expressed, and that would be not painting the entire surface and creating some sort of zone out in the out area that wasn't painted, that would, because there are plenty of families that are going to be out there in the evening on their skates, pushing their kids around their bike, with or without the painting of the surface. So, I expressed some of this to some of you folks out there, and shared that with Sam as well. It seems like somewhat of a compromise, but even that, I'm kind of hesitant in mixing those things, because then does it really set things up for success? So those are my thoughts. I'm willing to, waiting to hear more discussion with the council and where we go. It is one of those discussions where we see, it's a changing environment. We're seeing the popularity of one interest grow, and the other opportunity is, maybe in the future we put something on the radar screen as how we can provide, another service for skating. With that kind of summarizes where I'm at. I'm willing to have the further discussion on where we go and how we get through this. And I'll move to my right if Mr. Heading will want to take it from there. And hopefully we can get through this in the next few minutes so we can get on to the other items.
Are we doing questions or discussion?
We are discussion and deliberation for moving ahead.
Okay. I too have spoken with a number of pickleballers very early on. In fact, I was the one that put the LEAP initiative on the agenda when we initially had that program. And when we had a change in department leadership, it stalled for a while, but then under Sam's leadership and with all of the information that he's been supplied, it's moved along quite rapidly. I've done research. I've seen a lot of information and statistics that Kathy and Robert have provided to me. I think that this really comes down to a discussion that has to do with the actuality of the quantitative and qualitative use of the court. I believe from the standpoint of my job, the decision that I have to make is what is best for Morro Bay, the residents of Morro Bay, and that includes revenue production and community health in this case. And I believe that the court, and by the way, I'm at Del Mar once a week with my grandkids. They learned how to ride their scooters. We didn't do it in the middle court because it was too rough. We always did it on the basketball court. And they learned how to use their skateboard and their scooter and all those other things that I wouldn't get on that they did. And I think that Morro Bay will experience a significant advantage if we designate the middle court as a designated pickleball use only court. I think that it will contribute to the community's health. I think it will grow exponentially as it has in the past. From the data that I've seen, I believe that it will contribute to tourism and increase revenues for the community. And I look at what the pickleball group has done in terms of raising money to make this happen, realizing that this city does not have a stellar budget. Yet you bring forward almost full funding for the court. And so I could say a lot more about that, but because of the fact that there's significant need, significant use opportunity, and I do believe it satisfies the best use and most appropriate use for the community, I would be supportive of the conversion of the courts to pickleball courts. My concern would be maintenance of the courts and the costs associated with that. We have a tight budget. It's not budgeted. And I'd like to hear just a little discussion. I believe one person mentioned in Paso that there was a membership fee that was charged and possibly went to the city. So if somehow some dollars could be raised to help with maintenance of the courts, I think that would be useful as well. However, I would support it as recommended by staff.
Great. Noah?
Yes, thank you. I do want to just take a moment here and back up a little bit to Ms. Ponte's comments, because I heard the words game changer in there, but I still haven't yet heard what exactly that game-changing idea is to preserve multi-use and advance pickleball play. So was that what you were describing and you've had a chance to review, or can we get a better idea of
we could also always invite Kathy up to speak to that. As I keep going, and then we'll
I'd like to. That's very important to me. So
okay. All right.
I think it's worth hearing.
Let's go
a little
through
more
some
detail.
more comments, and then we'll come back to that. Okay. Matt?
In terms of using this piece of property, since this became Del Mar Park, I grew up when it was a pasture, and we used to catch frogs in the creek there. So dealing with this and watching the evolution, going from dirt pasture to Del Mar Park as it is, to the hockey rink, and now with tennis courts, and then we're talking about the evolution or development of this into pickleball. This is just the transgression or the growth of sport. And as this is a growing interest and need from the community, I'm also interested in terms of looking at the multi-use aspect of it. So perhaps if that could just cut right to the chase. I like the idea of accessibility of all ages. There are a number of other things there: the dog park, tennis courts, et cetera, basketball, and the park. So we are addressing multi-use and ages, not to mention the school is next door. So I do believe the development of this as pickleball, I think, is warranted. So I'm ready to go ahead with this, although I'd listen to the multi-use aspect of it.
Christine?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much along the lines of Councilmember Makowetzki with the fact that it's a multi-use space when you look at the entire park, and I think that's really a good way to look at the entire facility, including the school district property next door. I'm also really, I think, even though maintenance is dull and boring and not as exciting as new, it's so important here. We just haven't maintained our facility funds for infrastructure improvements in the city itself. So I would be really reluctant to go with something brand new that we really don't know how the elements will treat pickleball on the coast. Very different than likely it treats pickleball in Paso, and probably Cambria. You're going, where you could learn lessons there on the coastal air versus, a drier air, how it affects things. So I would just look for some kind of maintenance plan coming back and talking, how that would be woven into the future. I also think that I don't know if anyone's really left from the roller derby side, but I am more than willing to work with your group, and I think we should take it to the county. I think we should reach out to Supervisor Gibson and talk about other availability places to skate or to create to skate on the coast, because if you're talking about your one facilities in San Luis Obispo, and if people are traveling there, then maybe it wouldn't be in a position to travel somewhere else. I mean, Morro Bay is very small. Our footprint is not very large. We don't have that much developable space for anything we'd like to do. So I think there might be opportunities countywide, and I think you're wise to take it to Supervisor Gibson, and I don't mind making those connections. I think it's another way. Many of you tonight who came to speak live in Los Osos, so he's also your supervisor as well. So I think there are opportunities there to expand the program. I think it's a fabulous thing, and I am absolutely sad that we don't have an indoor skating rink that this community used to have. So that was a real loss when we lost that facility, and I would love to see someone come and open up an enclosed skating facility again. I think it would be, again, all ages. I think that would be fantastic. We had it, we lost it. Different than what we have now, though, at Del Mar Park. That doesn't, it's a very different situation. So I think there might be opportunities there, and people can reach out to any council member, actually, and we can talk about getting, maybe engaging other people in that. So then getting back to here, I'm a little cautious about forcing something to be multi-use that really probably has the best use to be what it is. But open to hearing it. I just think sometimes you don't do either thing well. And it's not a very large space in general. And but I'm not closing my mind to it at all. I would be interested to hear. But I think at this point, unless there would be something that would be game-changing, really game-changing, and I guess we'll decide, then I'm going to suggest that I would be supportive of moving forward with the permanent court. But again, I'm very willing to work with roller derby people to engage other options. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you want to entertain? You want to have more discussion on that, Noah?
I hear game changing. I'd like to know what that means before I make my decision.
So maybe we can invite Kathy Ponting up to speak to her comments. You're probably hesitant to say what you're leading into, but all right. Thanks, Kathy.
No, to explain this, and I want to say up front that the multi-use is not the best case scenario for the courts. Our biggest concern is they're very sensitive. It's a very sensitive and expensive surface, and we have to rely on the will and the obeying of signage that it wouldn't get damaged. And my first question was, when it does get damaged, will we be able to fix it? But the design that we have discussed, and nothing's in stone. We've had numerous steering committee meetings, and Robert Thomas has got a whole bunch of schematics. We love the fact that we want our fellow pickleball people and spectators and everything inside the courts, because that keeps that social atmosphere going. We are able to have banter with people on the courts and cheer them on and have snide remarks and be able to be part of the games going on instead of being outside of a fenced facility to where you're just separated from that social aspect of it. So there's enough room in Del Mar to where, and Kathy dubbed it the splash zone, I think that's pretty good, that you could have a 8 to 10 foot ring around the courts that, and this is up for discussion too, that is either the same court surface or something similar, because one of the things was you don't want to go from a professional court surface to concrete because that transition can be dangerous. But when we just had the discussion yesterday, Mayor Irons, I hope you can see that we are trying everything we can to be accommodating, to be community-minded, and we are open to these considerations. But knowing, hopefully you know that we do have concerns about the maintaining the facility. And we've actually had that discussion with Sam Taylor in the past that, we can be part of that maintenance, with some of the money we have set aside, and a fee is not out of question for the city.
Okay.
Any questions
for Kathy?
Just briefly, so the idea would be that splash zone would be a circular area around the pickleball courts that could be technically skated on when pickleball wasn't being played, or
Yes, skated, scooters, skateboards, bicycles, as knowing there's nothing that stops them from going on to that very expensive surface. It would have to be a lot of discipline of being asked of our multi-use people. But I mean, it's if it came to the point where it's absolutely not going to happen if we don't do this, we're willing to do it. But just it's not the best case scenario for the surface.
So, I'll just comment. When I came down yesterday to talk to you about that, you certainly wanted to have the conversation there because we're looking at the scope of our meeting now, and it takes a long conversation to work through those things. And some of the other comments were, it's one of those conversations you want to think about and consider. But the other part of it is, as we talk through that, you want it to be successful. You want it to be successful. And that's why I broached the question to you. And I, even talking through that, the multi-use combination, it's kind of a risky endeavor, and having it be successful or just too much friction that's created by having that. So I was really looking for some feedback from you, which you've provided us. And I think for most of us, we were ready to move ahead on a permanent facility. And I was sensitive to muddying the water on not making it a successful program. But I did want to have those conversations with you to get, your feedback and from
Well,
some
we're
of the
pretty
folks.
driven to have this be successful, and I think we're willing to compromise, but we do want what's best for the facility. It could be a phenomenal venue.
Yeah.
And what's best for the city. So.
Okay, so
say something. May I say something?
Absolutely. So we'll get through some questions.
Okay, here's a
questions.
picture I drew of what I perceive as the way the court should look. If you notice, there's dividing fences between the four courts. Half the time, people in pickleball spend their times chasing these balls because they're wiffle balls and the wind blows them down the court. So you put dividing fences. But if you'll notice, between the end of the courts and the fence is 18 feet. There's a lot of room there. So you could easily draw, and I'll show you, at what the ends of those fences are 8 feet from the courts themselves, or 10 feet from the court themselves. So if you draw a line, I'll show you, around that court, you could easily make a splash zone that's 8 feet wide, except for on the ends. Then you're going to have to narrow it down to 3 or 4 feet, and it would look something like this. Here, that post, loop around, and come around like this. This whole area, that's 8 feet from that fence post to there. There's more than enough room. It's perfectly doable. As they pointed out, the danger exists if you want to make two different surfaces.
Yeah.
Because if somebody is running and they're on a surface that's grit and then it goes away, well, that's not cool. And the last thing we want is anybody hurt. But it is totally plausible that you could put a racetrack around there that would be 8 feet from the end on the sides. Any questions?
Okay. All right. Thanks. And we have Any other questions from council? Dave, you have a comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So this is sort of new information. This is great back and forth. I'd just like to provide a staff perspective, one staff perspective on this, and that is we are all already concerned about maintenance of this surface. And while this having a multi-use roller rink and other rink outside of these courts is a nice compromise, it will make maintenance significantly more difficult and significantly more costly. Your staff is not outfitted to monitor the use to keep skateboards, roller skaters, scooters, or whatever off of what will be the expensive interior part. So it's just something for you to put in your calculation.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Can I just have 1 minute?
What, you know what?
Ambassador in Cambria, and I can help your decision.
So 1 minute.
Yes.
Come up.
Joseph Hilden. We have 6 courts.
Just please speak in the mic and let us know who you are, please.
Joseph Hilden. We have 6 courts in Cambria. We didn't lock them at the beginning, and skateboarders got on the courts at the night. We have no lights at night. It's in an area that you can't see it much from the streets, as is Del Mar, as is Paso Robles. Paso Robles and Cambria had to protect our investments, lock the gates at night. Then we open them up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that's how those 2 clubs do. And that's something for you to think about. If you just leave it unlocked, you're going to have lots and lots of headaches.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so let's get back into. I hear consensus on moving ahead on staff recommendation. We had a.
I got to make a motion. If you'd like.
Well,
can I finish my comments?
Yeah. So you have comments too, Noah? Yeah. Okay. So let's just finish 2 comments and then we'll make a motion. So I think we've got consensus on that. I think we entertained some, compromise discussion and really concluded where we need to go. So Noah, you had some closing remarks, and then we have a motion that's ready for the floor.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for entertaining that. Extension into looking at compromise options, because I think we're all taking this very seriously. It's in some ways exciting to see rejuvenated community members talking about getting outside and from all the different uses, and particularly pickleball. But it's also highly bittersweet to think about losing what is a pretty unique facility. So I'm taking this seriously, and I think we all are. And personally, I'm putting aside any economic benefits that could come from this sort of exchange, because truly, when we talk about recreation, public health and those benefits should be the number one priority at all times. And any additional economic benefits, those are secondary. They're nice to have, but they're secondary. So first and foremost, we have to make these decisions thinking about public health. And in doing that and thinking quite a bit about this decision leading up to tonight, I have to agree that the idea of trying to have a very quality pickleball facility combined with multi-use is not likely feasible and going to be successful. And I see that right now we have a long ways to go to try to get to a point where we can build back to have better roller skating opportunities and those indoor soccer opportunities. I don't see us getting there, though, in the short term, but this pickleball option is here, and it's being utilized, and the numbers bear that out. I live nearby. I do see a number of people using that in the evenings at times, playing soccer and so forth, and personally I have as well. But I'm trying to think about the bigger picture here, and the sheer numbers of people that are getting outside and exercising, and particularly a demographic that has relatively limited options, is probably the most important thing to me in this decision. So I'm going to agree with you, but it's not without a great deal of sadness that we are seeing a very unique opportunity no longer be available.
All right, thanks. And we have a motion.
Just a comment. I absolutely agree with you that community health is of paramount importance above and beyond economic well-being, and I believe that this has physical, emotional, and psychological as well as social benefits. And because of those four needs, especially given the fact that this, at least for now, is a senior population sport, I've never seen so many people involved in activity that gets their heart rate up, lowers their blood pressure, lowers their blood glucose, and brings longevity to their life than pickleball. And that's where my heart has been from the very beginning on this. So thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate that.
Let's take a motion.
I'm ready for a motion.
Yeah.
I move that we accept staff's recommendation that the city council that we permanently convert the Del Mar Park hockey rink into pickleball courts and direct the staff to do so accordingly. And I will suggest that we incorporate a use fee to help pay for maintenance on an ongoing basis for the courts. In addition, I think the courts should be locked at night when not in use to preserve the court integrity.
So we have a motion, and then we need a second.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Heading, a second by Mr. Makowiecki, and discussion. I just want to hear from staff on locking the courts and, the ability to do that. I just want to hear from staff how we're going to be able to do that.
So, as I noted earlier in the evening, this is a program, it's a city program, but we are partnered with a group that basically manages it on our behalf. And I'm fairly confident that those folks would continue to do so. And we likely would probably put together some type of agreement related to that as we are starting to do more of these partnership agreements. And part of that will be management of locking the facility.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. So we need to move on. We need to move on to other business. So if you could please take it outside. Our next item on the agenda. Sorry, but we're trying to get through the agenda. Next item on the agenda is City of Morro Bay participation in the California Hero Program. Item C3. Next agenda item. Folks, if you can, thank you for coming, but we need to get on to our next item. Scott, is this you? No? Oh, this is the Hero Program. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is item C3. It's the City of Morro Bay participation in the California Hero Program. Try it. So we're going to try to get through these expeditiously, are my encouraging comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. This item is an opportunity to look at participating in the California Hero Program. The California Hero Program is a PACE program, an Assembly Bill.
Thank you, Dana.
Assembly Bills 811 and 474 authorizes City Council. I have a typo in here, but it authorized initiation of these property assessed clean energy programs and to finance clean energy and conservation elements that are on fixed or real property. This modified the California Streets and Highways Code to allow this to be carried on the property tax. The Hero program was developed in conjunction with Western Riverside Council of Governments as a turnkey program to save other California jurisdictions time and resources in developing a standalone program. PACE Hero, we've kind of used those interchangeably.
PACE is Property Assessed Clean Energy, and HERO stands for Home Energy Renovation Opportunities. HERO is a PACE program. There are, based on some research, about 10 active PACE programs in the state of California. HERO is one of those. PACE allows a new way, maybe not new these days, I think it's been around for several years, to pay for home energy products, created in a partnership with industry leaders, allows property owners to pay for these improvements on their tax bill, and the operative legislation, AB 811, was passed in July 2008. Make sure I'm following my slides. The features of HERO and PACE, 100% financing. The approvals are based on the home equity. There's low fixed interest rates, variable terms from 5 to 20 years, and consumer protections. The HERO loans, liens can go with the home, but those are subject to buyer and lender approvals. There's a suite of various projects that can be financed through these programs: solar, HVAC, roofing, drought-tolerant landscape, insulation, to name a few. There are HERO communities in the Tri-Counties area: Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara counties, including City of San Luis Obispo and the unincorporated area of San Luis Obispo County are coming on board. HERO provides community support to property owners, contractors, real estate professionals, and municipalities through the whole process. It provides support to the community, contractor training, dispute resolution, they answer sales and refinance questions, and they provide that through a hotline service that's available 7 days a week. Conclusion: by adopting this resolution, the City Council is authorizing the city's participation in the HERO program and will enable property owners to finance permanently fixed renewable energy, water efficiency improvements, and electrical vehicle charging infrastructure on their properties. We have Dustin Rylick from the HERO program who's going to come up and say a few words about their program, council questions, and then open it up for the public comment. Thank you very much. And I think we have another representative from another PACE company here in the audience, and a potential PACE user or contractor.
Great, we'll get them at public comment.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Dustin Rylick, Director of Municipal Development for the California HERO Program. Thank you for having me before you. I've had several meetings actually with your city manager. He's great to work with through League of California Cities and so forth. I wanted to kind of clarify a little bit. PACE's legislation under AB 811 as well as the SB 474, making it available to be able to do these types of projects and pay it back on your property tax bill over time. HERO is just the most recognizable brand because we account for about 90% of the projects that have happened in the state of California. So I like to tell people, what do you blow your nose into? It's tissue, but Kleenex is the brand, and so HERO is a brand of PACE, just so that I can make that clear. There's also Open PACE, which is through CSCDA, which is also another program that your city manager has been made aware of, and the Y Green program. Those folks are here as well today. So there's many programs that are available and that might come before you in the future as well when your management brings them back to you. But our program, we've done about $1.3 billion worth of financing in the state of California, over 60,000 projects. What we have done is we've learned a lot about that along the way, and we do a lot of consumer protections. So between CSCDA's statewide program and our California HERO program, statewide programs, we've actually, the JPAs came together, Joint Power Authorities, to create a lot of consumer protections to protect protect the elderly over 64, English as a second language, all of those different things to make sure that those protections are in place, as well as subordination to protect real estate transactions, to make sure that in time of a transaction, if there's a sale or a refinance, we subordinate to that first trust deed to satisfy the needs of Freddie and Fannie under the FHFA guidances that they gave back in 2010. Here in your city, you already have one program that's active, the California First program that was made available back in 2009 or 10. All the cities here in San Luis Obispo County have that program already active. So you're just making another voluntary option available to your constituents, and you have contractors that are asking for it, you have constituents that are asking for it. There's no risk, there's no admin to the city, which is nice because it seems like there's limited resources there, which is good. We're here to help you. So we'll have community development people, contractor trainers, and so forth that can help you to get the best out of the program. And it's to help long-term financing, 5, 10, 15, 20 years on that property tax bill for that person to be able to do a solar, an HVAC, water efficiency, or doors and window replacements. So it's a great program. It's a win-win. Creates local jobs with your local contractors as well that are right here in San Luis Obispo County and hopefully here in Morro Bay. If you have any questions, I'm here for answering those.
Okay, great. Any questions? None? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Any questions for staff from council? Seeing none, I'll open it for public comment. Anybody would like to speak to this item, please come forward.
Good evening, guys. I know this is a long one, right? So I'm Adam Roberts, Regional Account Manager, manage San Luis Obispo County for White Green Energy Fund. So I just want to thank you guys for looking at adopting PACE in Morro Bay. White Green, just like Hero, we were selected with a competitive bid process at the county level and approved by San Luis Obispo County, as well as San Luis Obispo City. So we're operating in those areas as well, and in the unincorporated cities within the county. So we are definitely eager to serve Morro Bay and provide another PACE financing option to not only residential, but also commercial properties as well. And we've been in business since 2010, and we do take huge, very strong consumer protections in the industry as well. And then I just wanted to encourage the council and city manager to look at putting us on agenda to be voted in as well. And that was it. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Public comments open.
Hi, I'm Bob Kreiser, general contractor and approved PACE contractor for a couple of different companies that are PACE administrators approved in the county of San Luis Obispo. The PACE administrators that are approved here are Hero, White Green, and California First in the county of San Luis Obispo, and possibly, I'm not sure who was approved in the city of Morro Bay, city of San Luis Obispo, but I think all three of them were recently approved there also. The big benefit that I see for individuals, property owners, and business owners for being involved in these programs is relatively easy funding for energy improvements in your home or your business. If you have a reasonable equity in your property, the PACE administrators can make those funds available in a very short time, where if you decided to fund it through conventional means, it takes a lot longer, it's a lot more trouble, you have to go through appraisals, and through the PACE program, those issues are expelled and you get it very quickly. As a contractor, I was the first approved contractor for both California First and White Green in the county of San Luis Obispo, and consequently I'm getting calls from areas of the county where I normally don't work, but I'm stepping into those areas because we happen to be getting recognition because of being part of the PACE program. I highly encourage general contractors and different specialty contractors to become involved in these programs, because it's going to stimulate the economy, it creates jobs, it provides clean energy for people's homes, and so I really encourage that you support several different PACE companies to be able to serve the community of Morro Bay. Thanks. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. I'll just do a little ex parte. I appreciate Bob reaching out, sent me an email when this was coming about and introducing the other options of the PACE programs, including the options that the county has adopted. I think multiple PACE programs as well. So it's not just one. But on the agenda tonight is specific to HERO, and that's what the discussion is. So I just turn it over for more comments. Noah, I know you're familiar with this and a fan as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're finally able to keep this moving forward, and I'm glad to hear that multiple program offerings can be accepted by a community, and competition and choice is a good thing, as well as all the different things that this program will offer to our residents and businesses. I do think it's important to mention that people that are interested in this should realize that there could be some challenges if they are selling the home to attaching this lien onto their property is something to be aware of. It's the only possible negative to this whole program, which is loaded with positives, but it is something that people should be aware of. So I think it's important that we do mention that tonight. But besides that, I'm ready to move forward, and I think it would be a good idea to put a White Green and also California First on a future agenda as well if they're interested.
John?
Thank you. No, I absolutely agree with what you said. It's about time we did this for my car's sake. And, I also agree that there should be choice, and fully agree that the red flag is the payment obligation stays with the property, and the property owner upon sale, and that's an important issue to raise. So for tonight, I'm comfortable supporting this, and would also agree we should give consideration to other providers.
Great. Matt?
One question I have is, if and when this does get approved along with these other providers, how do our residents become aware of it, and how do they use it? Or how would they?
That's a great question, and that's the only concern I had as your city manager was, were you going to tell your staff to do a whole bunch of marketing? These guys are looking for business. They will do the marketing.
So then
we will certainly allow our community megaphones, Facebook, website, those things. We can help with that, but whether it is Hero or Y Green or whoever, they're going to want to be marketing this product for their own businesses.
So theoretically, then we would attach something to the city's webpage or whatnot saying that this is available, contact these providers?
Yes.
Got it.
Christine?
I agree with everyone, and I have nothing to add.
Okay, great. Just real brief comments and just another comment or question as far as great to see the outreach on, our megaphones, as you put it. I imagine we'd probably do that under the preface of a PACE program, not necessarily Hero or any one particular company, but if we're going to put that information out there, it would be under PACE, would be my only thought on that. And then the other question, being supportive of having competitors be in this, is it seems like everybody's supportive of future PACE providers. I would expect we could do that on consent since we've had the full discussion on this. If it's just a matter of, hey, it's just signing another provider in here, we could put it on consent and take care of it that way. We're getting agreement. Okay. With that, I would move for staff recommendation to adopt resolution number 1216, authorizing the city's participation in the California Hero program, which will enable property owners to finance permanently fixed renewable energy and water efficiency improvements, and electrical vehicle charging infrastructures on their properties.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Irons, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion? None. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Great. Thank you. That'll move us on to C4, Community Development Update. And appreciate getting to this item. Mr. Graham, welcome.
Just need to get the PowerPoint up. It's coming.
This is, which one was yours? The short one. Yeah, Steve knows. She says that that's the. I got you. Sorry, yeah. All right, so this is the 2016 Community Development Department status update. Was last before you with an update for the department back in January of 2015. At that time, the department was transitioning out from underneath the Public Services Department and becoming its own department. In doing that, we at that time we started off as building and planning, and then in October, November of 2015, added code enforcement. So now we're building, planning, and code enforcement. We've had some changes since 2015. We went from contracting out our building inspector and plans examiner services with California Code Check to hiring our own in-house building inspector and plans examiner. Our building permit tech at the time retired, and we've since hired a permanent building permit technician. Although we do still contract some services with California Code Check, specifically for our certified access specialist services. So that's sort of all things accessibility oriented. And we also have the ability to tap California Code Check on the shoulder and funnel plan checks out to them on an as-needed basis to accommodate changes in workload that are coming through the city. Like we get a whole bunch of plan checks at one time, I can farm some of that out, take some of the pressure off, and so we're still responding in a timely manner, which is important, right? Okay, building plan review times, looking at where we're at now, where we were at, back at our previous update. We're still running right now for the larger plan checks. Those are ones that involve planning, building, engineering, and fire. Those are about 3 weeks out at this point. Second plan checks or rechecks take about a week to a week and a half. We do have a shortened turnover time that's 5 business days, or typically sometimes less, for projects that are valued under $25,000. Those typically happen a little bit faster. Back in January of 2015, we identified 6 improvements that were either underway or were under consideration for the department. The first one was acquisition of a project tracking system. So we've done that now. We've acquired CityWorks, and we're in the process of implementation. Expected completion of that project will be June, July of 2016, so this summer. We wanted to reduce building permit review times to 10 working days for first submittals and 5 working days for subsequent reviews. And as anticipated, once we have CityWorks in place, we'll have a way to track and monitor our review times, and they can send automatic notices to the folks when we're routing them out to the different departments. We don't have that ability now. I literally have to walk around and go around to the different departments and tap people on the shoulder and like, hey, you owe me a plan check. That's not the most efficient way to do business. I would note that we haven't dramatically increased turnover time in the building department, but if you look at the notes section on the screen there, the number of building permits from 2014, we had about 241 building permit applications in 2014 with a total valuation of $9.5 million. Fast forward to 2015, so that's January 1, 2015 to December 31st. That increased to 390 building permit applications, so that's an increase of about 149 building permit applications, and total valuation increased from $9.5 million to $12.8 million. So we had a considerable amount of increase in the amount of plan checks and building permit applications that were coming through the department, and still managed to maintain at least a decent turnover ratio and getting things in and out. So we're able to streamline our review processes a little bit to accommodate that increase in activity. Moving on to some of the other things that we had identified back in that earlier report. We had a process for reconfiguring the front counter, removing the empty filing cabinets that were sitting in the area right now where we have desk configurations.
constructing shelving to house full-size plans. Status on those efforts are we've removed all those filing cabinets, and now you see desks where there used to be filing cabinets and a bunch of junk. Looks more like a professional office, actually, than what it used to look like. We've come up with kind of an ingenious way to deal with plan racks. If you walk into our offices now, you'll see on top of some of the filing cabinets in the back where we've purchased some wine racks, and we have the full-size plans actually fit in those pretty nicely. And when we were looking at doing, something a little more robust than that, the cost was pretty expensive. So this was a really cost-effective solution. It seems to work really well. But no wine in them, unfortunately. One of the other items we were looking to do was cross-train administrative staff on permit intake and issuance. So now in the building department, we have at least 4 staff members that are cross-trained to intake applications and issue permits. This is kind of an ongoing thing, though, cross-training is. One of the other items, item 5, was to alter when last I gave you the update, we had contract inspectors, and we were in the process of replacing our building permit technician who was retiring. One of the objectives was to alter the job descriptions for these 2 positions to really reflect kind of current industry standards for these things, and to require the appropriate certifications for the building inspector. That was a certification for a plans examiner, and then for the building permit technician was a building permit technician certification. So job descriptions were updated to include those, and those are part of the job descriptions for both folks that are occupying those positions currently. The last item was to update the building permit fees to reflect the cost of providing services, and we've done that. Moving on to Planning Division update. Planning Division currently oversees current long-range and special planning project functions. Current planning is basically permitting. Long-range is keeping up to date on the city's land use documents, so general plan update. Special planning projects involves grant administration, CDBG. Staffing in the department is overseen by myself, community development manager. We have 1 full-time associate planner, Cindy Jacinth, 1 contract full-time assistant planner, Joan Gargiulo. We have 1 contract senior level planner, that's Whitney McIlvain, and 1 contract part-time grant writer, which is Gaiska Velasquez, and then 1 full-time administrative assistant, which is Gina Arias. Looking through some of the items that were part of our long-range planning work program at the last update was to update the general plan LCP. Obviously, we're in process on that. To complete the revisions to the second unit ordinance, we've done that through Planning Commission, and it's anticipated to bring that forward to City Council in the March 22nd meeting, although I don't know that I finalized that with Dana yet. We did talk about it, though. And then work on revisions to the city's wireless ordinance. We took that through a process, sent it off to Coastal, and then it wasn't consistent with federal law. Kicked it back. I wasn't not surprised. It was before I got here. So now that's on the goals for FY 2016-2017 to fix. Climate action plan implementation, that's kind of an ongoing thing that we do through a joint effort with the countywide greenhouse gas stakeholder group and through Civic Spark currently. We have a couple of items that we've been trying to get through the Coastal Commission recently in relation to implementation of the housing element. One of them deals with density bonus, and the other one deals with our affordable housing ordinance. We're still sort of working those things. In fact, we've had to pull them back to make some changes to them that were requested by Coastal, and to sit down and have a more thorough conversation with them, because we just kept going kind of back and forth and we weren't really getting anywhere. So we've kind of pulled back a little bit now and are sort of reorganizing on that. Additional long-range items. Again, continue implementation of the housing ordinance. That's really that previous 2 items that we're working on. Initiate amendments to the parking standards for the Beach Street specific plan area. We're going to wrap that into the general plan LCP update. Creation of residential design guidelines. Obviously, we've adopted interim design guidelines, and probably going to have a much larger discussion about that as part of the general plan and LCP update process, and maybe a discussion about implementing those on a sort of neighborhood basis. seems to make a little more sense to tailor them a little bit more. Moving on to special projects and grants. Again, we administer the Community Development Block Grant program. We recently entered into our executed grant agreements for the Ocean Protection Council Sea Level Rise Grant and Coastal Commission Grant to update the LCP. And we have recently received council authorization to submit a Caltrans Sustainable Communities Planning Grant for the update of the city's bike and pedestrian master plan. We expect to hear back on the award for that in the spring or summer of 2016. As far as current planning goes, we had several of the same goals that we had in building that were covered here, so I'm just going to touch on these briefly. First was acquisition of project tracking software. We're in the process of that. Reducing turnover times for permits. Again, with the implementation of CityWorks, we'll be able to track this much better and then have alarms in the system that notify folks when they're late on their review, so that should tighten things up quite a bit. I did a similar run on planning permits like I did for the building and came up with those numbers. The planning one was a little harder to dial in on all the permitting for it. I kept getting a number of about 20 more than we had the year before, and I don't think that's accurate. And so I'm not exactly sure why, other than it's just a function of the current project tracking system we use, which is why we need to get a new one. Again, reconfiguration of the counter area, cross-training of administrative staff. We've done that for planning as well, and we have at least 3 other folks that can issue and intake permits. One of the things we want to do as part of the CityWorks update is also move the Planning Commission follow-up tasks that are right now being done by planners and they're really administrative functions. We want to move those to administrative staff. And so the nice thing about CityWorks is it's workflow-based. And so we created the workflows for that, and CityWorks now has those. So we'll be able to take some of those things that the planners were doing that were really administrative work and move those over to appropriate staff. And they'll be in the system, so they'll get notifications when they're supposed to do it, so it's like it prompts you to do it. That'll be nice. The last item is relates to code enforcement. In October and November of last year, we hired code enforcement staff. We started our outreach to the Morro-based citizens in October related to the informational campaign that we were starting proactive code enforcement. I think, as you're all aware, this has become a particular topic of interest recently, and we're going to have a much greater discussion at the next City Council meeting on March 8th. So I think I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. I don't know that we really need to dive into code enforcement related things if we're going to have a big discussion about this at the next meeting. With that, in conclusion, kind of the 4 main things to take away from this is Community Development Department's been around for about a year. It originally started with planning and building, and then in October took on code enforcement. We are in the process of implementing CityWorks, so project tracking and asset management software, which should greatly improve function of both our departments and some of the city public works functions as well. And we're in the process of the general plan and LCP update. With that, I'll conclude my presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Great, Scott. Thanks very much. We'll start with questions to the left. Matt, you want to lead us off on questions?
Well, questions, yes. I guess looking at like the totality of all this, I'm like, okay, how do you see this list of all these duties of the different departments or different parts of your department, Scott, and then working with the general plan update and then incorporating those? Is that just going to be a natural progression as we go along?
So the general plan update is part of one of the functions that we do. It's that long range function. It's maintaining our land use documents, specific plans, and things like that. It dovetails into one of those functions that we do. I have geared up a little bit. You saw I kind of glossed over and didn't mention it, but we picked up some more time. We originally had our assistant planner was a part-time person. We've moved that up to full-time so that our associate planner can spend a little more time helping me out with the general plan update. And so we added about 10 hours to that duty so we can kind of ramp up to deal with the general plan update so we can keep a good handle on that. So that's how we're doing that to start with anyway.
And then when do you foresee the CityWorks coming online so that residents or people going through the process are going to be able to monitor their own progress?
It's we're supposed to be online this summer. We sat down with the initial with the Timmons group who's doing the implementation for it, and we've given them our workflows, and they're putting those into the system now. I think we're supposed to have a demo of some of the work that they've done in about a month. Last I talked with them, so we'll at least get a peek of what it looks like, and then start tweaking it the way it's really supposed to be. I'm sure we came up with the workflow sitting around a table versus how they actually function in the system. So,
okay, no, great, thank you.
Great, Christine.
Okay, super. So just one question that jumped out. Any idea why such a large increase in building permits? Just working more efficiently, or people are
the economy.
Good economy.
The economy is back, or is in the process of being back, and I think we lagged a little bit behind other cities in that, and sort of looked down the pipeline and saw those things coming now. And we even have some larger projects that are coming forward now because their maps are getting close to expiring, and they've been sitting sort of fallow out there for a while. So I would anticipate that trend continuing through the next year.
Okay, great. That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Can I just make one analysis comment on that? That was over a 50% increase in number of permits, but not even close to a 50% increase in dollar value of permits. So likely a significant increase of smaller remodel sort of things, and maybe stable for new construction or big remodels.
Right, and I think just a follow, that's just the nature of our city, that there are a lot of older properties that we're likely not going to, I mean, how many, would you have a sense of how many buildable residential lots there are empty?
I
mean, they used to say 100 was a number that was 3 or 4 years ago. That's what anecdotally I think some folks used to say.
I don't know if there's that many.
Right, there'd be less now.
Yeah, we don't have a lot. We have a number that they identified in our housing element. I just can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Right, but it's not very many. So really,
is it about 100? Okay, Rob says it's low hundreds from what he remembers.
There's a couple larger tracts of land that, like
by Del Mar.
Del Mar.
Sure, right.
A good number of units.
Well, yeah, those are ones that we could do. I'm just vacant, like single-family home lots.
Sure, like right in the mix.
What I was kind of thinking.
Me too, though. Actually, that was my question too. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are other spots of it, but okay, great, thanks.
Great, John.
One question for you, besides a couple of emails I've received on RV parking and boat parking, how's code enforcement going?
Code enforcement's going pretty well. The guys have been on board. We have Dave Crockett and Tim Christofek. Those are our two part-time folks. They have a considerable amount of code enforcement experience. And they seem to be being received for the most part fairly well by the public, especially when given the position that they're in. You're sending out things that are potentially telling folks that they have things on their property that aren't in compliance. And so you get a lot of phone calls of folks that aren't happy, and they deal with that really well, and they typically go out and meet people. Both of them are, we were talking with them today about code enforcement, specifically to David, and he regularly goes out and meets with folks at their house to walk through what's going on, and for the most part, he's had a pretty positive experience with the Morro Bay folks. So not getting a whole lot of, sort of pushback on that. He seems to be faring fairly well. So, and that's an experience that I've, and the comments that I've gotten from the public out there about them as well sort of mirrors that. So, yeah.
Good, John. And Noah?
Thank you. My only question was about the sign ordinance, and Scott was able to update me on that earlier, so I'm all set.
Good. Glad to have this back. I know we asked for this a year ago, and part of that was how do we invest further, and of course the City Works is one of the big investments in that. One comment about the general plan, as far as being able to gear up for that, and transfer someone into a full-time position. As for, I guess, Cindy to play a larger role, right, in this, which is great. I'm assuming because we have the increased number of permits, we've basically adopted a 100% cost recovery on impact fees. We're covered from a financial standpoint with that increased revenue from building permits to cover from a part-time to a full-time position to help offset and make sure you're keeping pace with the general plan.
Yeah, and this is contract full-time.
Right, I understand.
It's not a full-time employee, not an FTE. But yeah, the departments, our revenues are well above what they were last year.
Right, and irregardless of general plan, as applications start increasing, from our conversations, there's adjustments as far as how we can get part-time folks to help us and meet those 10-day and 5-day turnarounds, which is what we want to be able to do.
I think that's I think that's where we want to be, and we'll be right now. I'd be guessing a little bit at the metrics without having something like CityWorks in place. Once we have it, we'll be able to dial that in pretty well and know exactly how we're doing. Versus right now, it takes a little bit of work to kind of get there.
Yeah, so I appreciate coming back and visiting this again, and not to belabor this, but really to kind of showcase the importance. We get a lot of input on building planning overall, and I think there's been a lot of growth. So, I think it'd be interesting to see what an example of what CityWorks looks like when we get there. Just from the standpoint of we have a great presentation tonight, but when you can actually demonstrate, hey, here's a plug in the number permit, and it's sitting in here, this stage, and then you can pull up the stats, and just the benefit of that. I think it'd be, great to see that, and kind of understand that, how much better we're doing.
Well, and we should probably show that. This is something that's going to be available, and there's a public-facing component to that to show people how they use it, and they can get to that would be, I think, appropriate given the amount of resources we're putting into this.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Mr. Mayor, just and Council, a couple of comments just in general on this. So one thing I've told Scott is his is a customer service department, and how much work they have to do affects how long it takes to do that work. And if we need to increase hours, if we need to spend more money on wages, increase somebody's hours from 20 hours a week to 30 hours a week in order to keep our timing, our turnaround times where they should be, then I'm going to do that. So, and that will naturally balance out by permit fees. So if we get, a 50% increase in permits, we might increase some of our contract staff time by 50% to keep up with that, but we're also going to have the fees to do that, and you would see that at a mid-year budget correction and say, look, the revenues went up, but also our costs went up. So that's just one thing. The other is one of the things we're noticing, and I've talked with a few of you in more detail about this, but as with many things in the city, as we put systems into place and sort of uncover some rocks and figure out what was underneath them, perhaps some of our building inspection practices in the past were less by the book than they should have been. And so as you've seen some tension in the building inspector area, some of that has to do with other things, perhaps, but some of it, perhaps a lot of it, has to do with, well, actually, we're using the book now, and we have a standard, and we're holding everybody to the same standard, and that's something that we're working hard to do in every area, is to have a clear written standard and say, here's the standard, and all you got to do is meet this. You don't have to do any more. You don't have to know anybody in City Hall. All you got to do is do what it says in the book. The last thing I'd say is when we had this discussion almost a year ago, community development department was just sort of nascent, and I told you that we were developing this, working it, seeing where we were going to go with it, how it was going to work. My assessment is working very well. That there could be in the months or years ahead additional functions that would be put into community development. For example, Scott, this isn't a function, but it's a activity. Scott is much more engaged, as is Sam, in harbor lease development than community development was before. And one of the things I'm getting at is I'm working through this. I'll talk to you in more detail about it, but you'll notice that Scott's name tag is different than Rob's name tag. Rob says director, Scott says manager. That's something that I'm looking seriously at. Scott's department is operating as a department, and it probably needs a department head. And so I'm working through those things. I thought this was a good time to note, just like I did last year, that those are that this is effectively a department now, and that's where I sort of see this going.
Okay, great. Well, let's open up for public comment. Anybody like to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. I just want to make one more quick comment. Yeah, we've made a lot of growth on this, and appreciate. I think it was great for council to make the investment in City Works. Granted, we're still rolling that out, but we're going to see the investment in that. Department overall, great to see the update. I just have to make a note. I know, Scott, we were talking today, and there's been some conversation. As far as code enforcement goes, historically, where we've been in code enforcement, at least my time in 3.5 years or so on council, code enforcement has been an issue for the city ever since I've been involved as far as elected goes. And it was really, really apparent that we recognize that code enforcement, whether or not we have code enforcement employees or officers, just on the complaint-driven system, takes an exorbitant amount of time from staff to respond to. So whether or not we're proactively in some sort of code enforcement program at this point, just to be able to react to code enforcement complaints, there's benefit in having that person, especially when we have the workload that we have as far as permitting, getting applications turned around in the appropriate amount of times, managing a general plan update. So, I just wanted to mention that. I know we'll probably get into more of those details at the next council meeting, but, I think it's relevant in the big picture of the planning department and how we're doing work.
When you think about it, we probably had a dozen people at City Hall doing code enforcement. We hired 2 part-time code enforcements. Now they do all of it. And that's a big change. They do it happily, and they're able to keep on top of it, and that's fine. But that is a change, and it does focus it all into one area. So then you're trying to do that while doing the proactive piece. And so it's, you have to balance the two, because you have to be able to respond to the complaints that we get in. And we get a lot of complaints in, whether that be through online or whether it's just calls, because now people know they're there. They get phone calls too, so they get quite a few of them, and they spend a lot of time returning calls. So,
okay, unless there are any other closing comments, this is a receive and file. Christine?
I would just like to say that I think in 1 year we've seen a lot of change in the department compared to when I first arrived on council, and I think it's all been very positive. And I think that there were a lot of concerns in the community about projects and delays or pace of projects, and I just don't get those complaints as much as I had when I first became a council member. So I appreciate that energy. It's a lot like a recreation department. It's just a renewed energy and a renewed focus, and I appreciate that. And I think it's all been great, and you've done a lot in 1 year, so I appreciate it. And it'll be exciting to have City Works back you up, but then also that'll be a customer service feature that we can give directly to residents too. So I think it works for you, and it works for the citizens of Morro Bay. So I think it's all going to be fair. So it'll be exciting to see how much more efficient things become, let's say, next fall. So, but thank you. I appreciate you and everyone in your department.
John?
Scott, I just wanted to say that I have seen you work over the last year, and having read your report, it brought it forward to me what I had observed. In my mind, you have completed an extremely voluminous amount of work in a year, much to the benefit of the community. And I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your abilities, your ability to reorganize, to interact with the public when there are contentious issues, And when daggers are coming at you, you seem to have the ability to quiet things down, calm folks down, and end up with a positive outcome. That's extremely important. So from my standpoint, I just see a tremendous amount of progress. I'm excited about what's going to happen in the future, and I'm really glad as a council member that you're here. Glad to have you as part of the city.
Echo that. Noah?
I agree completely. A couple of items that I think have been really beneficial and were challenging to work through, but you did a good job with them, was the design guidelines and just recognizing how much we refer to them. And it's, it's a stop in a process that's going to continue, but it's given us a chance to take a breath and have something that we can build off of. And that was a historic, just a sore point that continually, I think, weighed down our planning commission, and the whole planning process wasn't fair for residents and neighbors of projects and project applicants. So I think that's a really good example of some really high value work that you've done for us.
Dave, did you have something?
I have nothing to add to
Okay,
the Love
good.
Fest.
All right, good. With that, we'll receive and file. Thanks, Scott, and we'll get through the next one. So that concludes item C4. We'll move on to item C5. And item C5 is consideration and discussion of city signature community events. And this would be Mr. Taylor.
Sam said he would do this in 5 minutes.
I'm going for a land speed record. Staff recommends the council approve resolution number 1116 adopting the city's sponsored partnered events. The events would be the Dixon Spaghetti Dinner. It's a community gathering fundraiser for low-income youth recreational programming support. 4th of July at Tidelands Park, Roxy Pier Run, the downtown trick or treat, which would be in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. We're really excited about that. The lighted boat parade, Christmas tree lighting in partnership with the Rotary Club, and we're excited to try that as well. What are signature city events? Signature city events, we kind of consider them resident focused generally rather than visitor focused. They are a celebration of the local community. They're either directly managed by the city, such as Roxy Pier Run, Spaghetti Dinner, 4th of July, or that are supported by the city, the trick or treat, the lighted boat parade, etc. What does support mean? A signature city event would be in essence considered a city event, meaning permit fees are unnecessary, and we would likely utilize staff resources to support the event, such as what we did with the 4th of July. That's a really good current example or recent example. Designating an event a city signature event also provides opportunity for the city council to consider monetary support each fiscal year, so this provides a good, at least base framework for that consideration. City staff would work with partner organizations to determine what resources each entity has, what we could share, what the city would like to assist with, and bring any revenue requests to council for the next fiscal year. We know we're already having discussions right now with the chamber for this stuff. City support can assist in reducing volunteer burnout. That's a concern we've heard from the community in the past. It can help with financial resources sometimes, lacking to enhance an event. For instance, what about concerts during trick or treat? That's something we're talking about. We had all of Morro Bay Boulevard from Main to Market closed off. A significant portion of that was underutilized just because I think it was the first year of that full thing. And there's a lot of space there that could be utilized for another portion of the event. So that concludes. Staff recommends council approve the resolution.
If I could quickly add what this means budget-wise. The spaghetti dinner is essentially self-funding. Each of these would require some staff time, perhaps some low level of support. There might be a police officer that we have to pay overtime to on something because we need a little bit more police support or something. So that might be for all of these. But generally, spaghetti dinner is self-funded. The 4th, we already allocated funds for at mid-year for the 4th of July. That is something that would cost some money. Rock to Pier it's actually pays back. Self-supporting. Trick or treat and lighted boat parade, both of those are things where we wouldn't charge for a permit. We would have some police and fire assistance that we wouldn't charge for, perhaps some public works assistance, but I wouldn't take on huge financial requirements in the city without coming back to you. But that's what it means to be a city signature event, different from another event that we're about to talk about, where you do need a permit to have a yoga at the Rock, and that costs something, or to do these other kinds of events and to get city support for them.
Great, thanks. Questions from council? John?
Just one. What are the criteria for determining a signature community event?
So far, the most simple criteria we use are the events that have already been long-standing in the community and that we've done for a very long time. Two of them are already directly managed by the city and have been for a long time. The spaghetti dinner was created by the city. The Rock to Pier Run was also created by the city. So it made it easy for us to say, we're already doing those events. They're very popular. Let's do that. 4th of July, I think we made the decision last year that it was feasible for the city to continue to do that with significant volunteer help. We very much relied on volunteers. And then we looked at other events that were in other seasons as well. So Lighted Boat Parade, Christmas Parade, that one, we had our own Christmas tree lighting in the past. It made sense not to double up, to cause families to have to pick and choose, to scramble to events, and let's just partner with an event already existing on literally the same day we do ours. That the Halloween is immensely popular for families. There were hundreds of kids in downtown, and so we felt that represented a good partnership opportunity with the chamber. And so that was kind of how we made that determination.
Generally, I'd answer that two ways. The first way is the primary purpose of the event is to serve residents. And except for Rock to Pier, all those other ones are very resident-focused. 4th of July is not a big out-of-town thing. Wasn't last year. Of course, different than Avo Margarita or Harbor Fest or something. That's someone. But what really makes something a city signature event is you passing a resolution that says it's one. And that's what you're considering doing.
No questions?
No more.
Matt? Christine? I just have a question just to follow up on John's. If we look at our next staff report, we're saying there should be a 5-year limitation on the agreement for co-sponsorship. Is there any consideration for putting a 5-year on the signature events, and then we revisit this and, hey, what are our signature events in 5 years? I mean, other than we just think we need to discuss it every year.
I think these stand as city signature events until we come back to you, or you direct the staff to make a change. We could well be here in a year saying we've got a new one and we recommend you add this to the list, and there'll be 6. Or in 3 years we say, hey, this one isn't working, let's take that one off. It's no longer a city signature event. Because these sort of come with some city support, the intent of these is not to necessarily become self-supporting over time, which is different from the other ones. For example, we think we'll be asking you for $5,000 for 4th of July for the next 50 years. We don't intend for it to become self-supporting. Different from Yoga at the Rock, if we provide some city support to Yoga at the Rock for its first 2 years to get it up and rolling, and then after that it should be rolling on its own, or it's
good to go. Good to go. Thanks. I'll open for public comment for anybody who'd like to speak to this item. Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. And if there's any other discussion or motion, ready to go.
I just wanted to appreciate that we did get some public comment earlier, just one, but we did hear from people. I know that Ms. Craig had worked for, 8, maybe 7 years on the Morro Bay 4th of July board, and I think it's just good to hear that they would be, happy to see it come back to the city.
Yeah, good.
And
good comment, Christine.
Yeah, so I appreciated her coming out and mentioning that. Yeah. And I would move approval of C5.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve resolution number 1116, and by Councilmember Johnson, a second by Councilmember Smuckler. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Item C6, consideration of recommendation to City Council regarding the city co-sponsorship policy and guidance and community facility use by various groups and fees to reduce cost. Thanks, you guys.
Easiest one tonight.
Sam gets ready to do this one. So this is not for decision. This is for some discussion and some direction, and we're going to come back to you with after we hear your thoughts with some decisions in April or so.
So on my first slide, staff will bring back any policy changes or note modifications to a future council meeting, and tentatively in April. The recommendation the City Council members should provide guidance to staff regarding co-sponsorship and partnership standards for events and waiver of fees for rental of city facilities. We'll get into some background. Why is this an issue? Administrative decisions about who gets free or reduced cost use creates a system of winners and losers when staff's job should be to carry out adopted policy and law of the City Council. What we found is that over time, various deals, agreements have been made verbally about free or reduced cost use of our facilities for a variety of reasons, many common sense reasons. An organization has provided support to the community, to the city. It's a long-standing group. We appreciate it. But there's no specific policy in place providing direction that they receive it. There's no contract in place, and that's been concerning for staff. We're trying to change the way we do things. We're trying to professionalize it more. We want to be a little bit more of a grown-up city, I think, and we don't want to be in the business of not treating everyone fairly. And so over the last 8 months, we've continued to run into these types of things, and it's just, frankly, it's a little stressful for staff. We don't want to have to be the ones to make these decisions without following the rules that you lay out on behalf of your constituents. Free and reduced cost use impacts the community's municipal budget. Funds that could be used for maintenance of these important facilities or used to help prepare for rebuilding them in the future are lost. When an organization isn't paying the same as others, in essence, taxpayers are picking up the tab for that. One caveat is that, as I said, there are organizations that are providing a service back to us, and so in some cases, you might consider it not a gifting of public funds, but that we're almost paying for a service by providing them with facility use. So I don't want to say that we're just giving everything away. Many of these groups are doing something on the community's behalf, and I really want to respect that and recognize that. Who gets what? And this is my additional caveat before I get into the who gets what kind of slide. City staff are not providing information on these groups and their free or reduced use to argue they don't deserve these discounts. Staff is not making a judgment on any of these groups and their use. These groups do great work on behalf of the community and should be applauded for that effort. This is a discussion about administrative staff needing official policy instruction to ensure fairness for all. And so before I show you the slide on who gets what, I just wanted to point that out. And I'll just review a few. These are very small. I apologize on the slide here. But a few of the examples, and I promise I'm not picking on anyone, but we've had a long-standing, again, verbal partnership with the Morro Bay Community Foundation. They provide low-income children with support for our recreational programming. Over the years, we have provided them with free use of the community center auditorium for Morro Bay Sings. We've actually even expended some funds on their behalf. We've purchased the audio, I believe the speakers, for that event over time. Staff at no cost has hung up decorations or some curtains, I think, some noise reducing curtains. And there's just no agreement in place for that. And that's something that if council is supportive of those types of partnerships, it makes sense to have a contract to recognize if you consider it a service they're providing on the city's behalf, we should recognize that contractually. Eco Rotary is one that we really learned about through this process. And I first want to note that on an earlier version of this slide, and it's obviously much clearer in the packet, we said that they didn't have insurance, that we waived it, and that's not accurate. And I want to apologize publicly for that misinformation. It's clear that we're still working through some of the kinks on our tracking of these, and that's part of what we faced this whole time. But Eco Rotary is a good example because they're doing amazing work as an Adopt a Park program volunteer group. And I believe that they were under the impression, and I fully recognize it's probably the case, that they were receiving use of space in the community center for doing that Adopt a Park program work. We don't have any agreement with them that states that. And those are the types of things that just makes us a little uncomfortable. We'd like policy in place to address that, and we'd like a contract with them to do that, along with all of these other groups. Another aspect of this that's kind of, I don't know if it's outside of this conversation or not, so I put it in there, but about 75% of this is organizations that appear to be utilizing our space because they have some type of relationship with some department. And rather than the departments oftentimes coming to recreation services and requesting use of that space as a city function, this organization's coming on its own behalf and saying, well, we need it. We probably administratively should begin requiring our departments to coordinate those meetings directly if they are actually city meetings. If they're not, then I think they probably should be part of this review. Co-sponsorship policy. So there's two policies I'm going to review for you, and I apologize if it's confusing. There's a co-sponsorship policy, which is very specific to the shoulder season. Yes.
Sam, pardon me, I've got to interrupt. It's 10:59, and I need to take a motion to go beyond 11 o'clock. As much as I was shooting for to beat that time, we have so moved. And a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0.
I'm not as quick as the last one.
Sorry.
This one's a little bit, I think, more complicated.
Thank you.
So this policy is the co-sponsor. Yep. This is the co-sponsorship policy related to shoulder season tourism, frankly. And then I believe in 2014, the council adopted a partnership policy. In our review of it, or I should say my review of it, it's a fairly nebulous policy that is almost more theoretical about why you should have a partnership as opposed to how to quantify those and actually have some real criteria for what a partnership should be. It also is an odd document because it seems to basically say, we really want you to do stuff for us, but it doesn't really say we're going to pay for that in any way. That payment being maybe use of space or some type of recognition or something like that. But it's really more like, just come do stuff for us. And I think that we're more interested in real, true partnership. So related to co-sponsorship, we'll start with that first. Again, it's different from the partnership policy. In 2009, the City Council adopted a motion, not a resolution, but a motion that said that groups could receive direct cost payment for use of facilities. It's very low cost, oftentimes like $3 an hour, as opposed to $77 an hour we charge in the fee schedule. And they qualify for it by meeting three standards. The event must be held off-season, basically the shoulder season that we talk about in the tourism world, between November and April, end of April. The event should be multi-day or a one-day event with financial return to the city. I'm unclear how we are quantifying the financial return to the city. Does that mean we're tracking sales taxes from that one single thing, which would be kind of difficult to do? Or is there some other financial thing? The motion didn't state that. The requesting party must be a nonprofit organization. So far, only two organizations had qualified for it. That was the Winter Bird Festival and Dahlia Days, which is no longer occurring. There also, I believe, was a requirement for an annual application process, which has not been occurring since that time. The Winter Bird Festival still does qualify for this, and they did receive direct costs. They haven't received direct costs since 2009. I've spoken with the organizers, and they obviously are supportive of continuing this policy. The other policy is the city partnership policy. I kind of gave you basically the outline of it. It doesn't seem like much of a quantifiable partnership policy. How do we really make a determination as to whether we partner with an organization? We should probably have some standards in place before we determine that type of partnership. The Recreation Parks Commission unanimously recommended some various things for council to consider. Every organization should have some type of written agreement if they're going to receive some type of reduction in fees or free use, for the typo. Definitive qualification guidelines should be outlined to determine when the city will partner. There should be a 5-year limitation on an agreement, so any co-sponsorship or partnership agreement can be reviewed as still appropriate or relevant. And the co-sponsorship policy should be reconsidered, in particular as to whether it should be only for groups that have events during the shoulder season, and it should probably be adopted by a resolution. Again, the recommendation is we're looking for guidance from council, and not necessarily any decisions tonight. We're happy to take your guidance, go do more research, more review, and bring you something back in April.
If I could just add one thing, and that is, we often view a room like this as, hey, let's just use the room, it's no cost. There's some maintenance costs in those things, but very often there are setup and takedown costs. So there's staff, sometimes significant staff time to set up for a certain event or take down for a certain event. So it's something we should keep in mind. You have energy costs, You have just the wear and tear sort of costs, but the most expensive one is staff time to set up, tear down, prepare a space for a group to use it, and to monitor, to come in early or late, to open, close. So we have some groups that have this verbal agreement to use a building, use a room, but we have staff then that has to come in at 6:30 to open that room, and those are costs that are very real and can add up.
Great, thanks. We'll go into questions on this and open up for public comment, and then come back for discussion. So, any questions, Christine?
I think that this is worth our time tonight to take a little bit. I know we're wanting to close, but I think that it's really important for us to give some guidance back to Sam before he comes back again. I think that this is what he's bringing to us tonight is a real conflict, and I think we've probably heard from the community about these conflicts. And we rely on our volunteers in our community to help make our standard of living great around here. So I think it behooves us to take some time and give him some good feedback. Some questions I have is what do you know about the Adopt a Park groups and their agreements? Are we all squared away with those, and are they coming out of your department?
So right now, anything related to park maintenance, including the Adopt a Park program, was transferred over to Public Works. Should we kind of work on, an additional partnership program, we would just continue to probably coordinate directly between Rec and Public Works on that. It makes sense that because the partnership policy doesn't say it's got to be a partnership contract, we could still utilize the Adopt a Park contract system and add in maybe some new language recognizing some type of use. We just really need to have good communication between two departments. I'm confident we can have that.
Okay, and then
if I may, through the mayor, just for additional information, last week or the week before, I think it was Janine sent me an email saying, should we have an agreement for this Adopt a Park? And I said, yeah, we should, and let's do a license agreement. So we're starting that process.
Oh, okay, great. Well, that'll help. Okay, and then another question is on March 11, 2014, the council, and the three of us are still here, passed this partnership policy. Are we using it today, or what can you tell me about feedback from rec staff about the partnership policy?
We currently have as far as I can tell, we have not necessarily utilized that policy. I believe because it doesn't really provide much guidance, just to be honest. But that hasn't precluded us from working on some partnerships that aren't contractual that we probably should have contractual. For instance, Project Surf Camp. It's a wonderful organization. We kind of consider the service they provide almost one of our own recreational programs that spans even beyond our borders. People come here and visit and stay. That's a perfect example of something that probably should be a partnership contract. And we haven't been doing that. What we've been doing is basically sending them a letter recognizing that, but it has no indemnification language, and that's a concern. We want to make sure we're also protecting the city from liability.
Okay, great. And then some of the attachment 1 had names of groups that are currently meeting. This isn't really exhaustive because I know we've got Estero Bay Community Radio, the Community Resource Center, the Historical Society. They're also out there and they're meeting. So how do they fit into what we're talking about tonight?
So I believe what you're talking about are a lot of those organizations utilize city space at 695 Harbor Street, which is where the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center are. And what we did recently, the chamber was leasing that entire facility, and now they are only leasing a portion of the facility, and the city is managing the rest. Prior to that, they also were subleasing space. It initially began as the incubator program, which is no longer, and several of the organizations remain from that time. The city also placed the resource center in that facility as I believe we consider the resource center a city function at this time, or we're working on that relationship. And we currently don't have active agreements with the radio station or the Historical Society. Those were null and void when the chamber's lease expired. We do intend to work on those. it's a little bit of a different conversation from this, because what we're talking about today is facility use and rentals versus lease of space. So the red building down on the Embarcadero, that is a home, we rent that. It's a lease that we do. I would consider those things at 695 Harbor Street much more closely related to renting that home on the Embarcadero versus our facility reservations. I should also note that the Recreation Services Division does not manage leases for our facilities. All we really handle through our active program are the facility rentals and reservations.
Okay, and then one final question. The Morro Bay Community Dinner is listed on attachment 1, but that comes up through budget time. So, we talk about some of these things during the budget time and some we don't. So are you anticipating some of this would come into the budget time, or are you looking for a different kind of conversation?
I think it's appropriate that it remains in the budget time. It also still is appropriate probably for us to have some type of partnership agreement with these events to recognize that. The dinner, that is, I guess it is handled through the budget, and it makes sense to continue to do so.
Okay, those are my questions for now.
Thanks, Dave.
So just using that as an example, the Morro Bay Sings, a great event that raises money for something really important in our community. There's really no agreement right now. It's been this wishy-washy thing. We've done it. We've used staff to do a whole lot of work for it. We could do this a couple of ways. So using this sort of as a case study, we could have an agreement with them that said we're going to do X, Y, and Z, or they could be like sort of any other organization, but then the city council could gift them X $2,000 during budget time that would essentially cover those costs. So you would gift them $2,000 in your budget, and that would pay for room rental and some setup costs and some of the other things. And that's really what we're looking for some guidance on, is what are your thoughts on how we should, what you would like to hear back from us?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Great, Matt.
Yeah. So with that said, looking at how you're kind of breaking down the categories, I think I'm with you here, Sam. You're trying to identify the various parameters of the different interest groups, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so you have the co-sponsored, then you have the partners. Do you envision any other sort of groups?
The only other groups are those that appear to have some type of coordination with the city department that's maybe more of an administrative issue we need to just fix.
Okay.
But I will say, for instance, the Coast Guard Auxiliary recently came to us and said, sign our contract that you're going to give this to us for free. It's like, I don't have any guidance from anybody that allows me to do that. I'm not going to do that.
So looking at that, when you have the co-sponsored, the partnerships, then if you identify these groups within these parameters, within the rec department, groups such as the Coast Guard Auxiliary would come, and then you'd have those. So do you think that beginning provisions and sunset provisions, did you say, Dave, 5 years, if you give an organization 5 years, okay, you would have this sort of identification for this amount of time if you were within this category?
Correct.
If that's what you're looking to do?
Correct.
Okay, because looking at the criteria as laid out here, I'm with you there. So, okay, that's all my questions.
John? Thank you. Noah?
Yeah, just a quick question about what you think would be a good outreach effort to the groups that could be affected. I know you've already talked with plenty of them, but you plan on making sure each one's given a chance to at least consider the draft as we go forward and talk about this again?
Absolutely. The spreadsheet I had is actually is fuller than what's up there. It has all the contact information. For that, I asked staff to give it all to me prior to this meeting, so that once we had some direction, I could start getting in touch with folks and say, hey, what do you think about this? We definitely want them to have a say, and again, we really do recognize their volunteer efforts, and we really appreciate it.
Okay, great. Pardon me if I'm a little repetitive. I heard part of your question, Christine, about the adopt a park policy, but we're talking about partnership and co-sponsorship, and I think Sam, you and I, when we talked today, is like, what's the positive? Partnership how much do we use it? Can we combine partnership and co-sponsorship? Do we even need to consider that? If we want to go down the road of how we're going to evaluate co-sponsorship, and really, maybe that's a question if we send it back to Rec and Park to look at that and consider, do we really need two different policies, or is there one that can cover that if we just craft it right, if we consider all the issues, and then the adopt a park policy. So was the question? Forgive me if I didn't hear that. So the question was that can be cleaned up a little bit. We understand there's adopt a park, but as you were saying, because they had an adopt a park agreement, they were given some other use of utilities, but we didn't have any agreement. So that adopt a park policy really lends itself for some cleanup as well.
I fully agree with that. When I've looked at older versions of the adopt a park agreements, it's almost just like an indemnification, it seems like, for us. If maybe Joe, you can chime in, but it didn't seem to provide them with anything back to them. It's just, thanks for doing this thing for us, and we're not liable if you hurt yourselves. But we've had groups who said, well, we kind of got to have a handshake deal where we got some use of space. And I fully understand that, but I think that we want to have that in writing. And because staff does turn over, and you lose institutional knowledge, and then you get surprised when you find 12 different organizations that have these deals.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor. I agree with you. It makes sense to have one policy. To get back to that really quick. Having said that, co-sponsorship, what you're quantifying there, what you're calculating in terms of it being a tourism-related event, that's another question I'm hoping you'll kind of talk about tonight is, do we still want that? I'm not trying to be detrimental to them, but the Winter Bird Festival is not necessarily providing us a service the same way that Eco Rotary does when they go clean up a park. But they still are a benefit to the city because they're attracting tourists for a 4-day event. It's a rather large event. It's really impressive to see what happens at the community center throughout time. But it's not the same type of service that you would consider. It's more of a tourism generator and an economic development generator. And so trying to figure out how we quantify that.
Okay.
One document's appropriate, though. We can do that.
Okay. I was going to open up for public comment. Do you have any add? No?
Yeah, this can be a great discussion, and we're still thinking our way through this as well. But if you just think about Winter Bird Festival, they're fantastic. Avocado Margarita Festival is pretty fantastic in ways too, and the Yoga Festival will likely be fantastic also. And so that's what we're sort of working through is to have a policy where we don't treat everybody differently based on how we used to do it and who they used to know that worked in whatever building, but that we have a policy that addresses this. And I sort of alluded to it before, but for example, Pismo's approach is they will provide some support to new events for 2 years, but it's known ahead of time that at the end of 2 years, the support dries up. So if you're going to start a Yoga at the Rock Festival, you might get some help from the city to help get that thing going for a couple years, but the expectation is that help isn't going to keep coming for the next 2 decades, that after 2 years that your festival is going to need to run on its own. And so those are the things that are out there that we're sort of thinking our way through, and look forward to your input on.
Okay, great. We'll open for public comment. Anybody like to speak to this item, please come forward. Erica, thank you for staying.
Good evening.
Thank you.
It now seems completely off topic because it actually is, I think, but page 11 of the agenda correspondence, I just wanted to directly reply in public forum. Knowing that it was going to be fairly late, I just wrote something, so I'm just going to read it. It's going to take 30 seconds. Name is Erica Crawford. I'm the president and CEO of the Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce. The organization that I proudly represent is a 501c6 nonprofit organization that this year celebrates 60 years of existence in Morro Bay. I am speaking tonight to address concern that the Chamber operates outside of our stated mission to support and advocate for our business community. The Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce is at present working closely with the city, the Visitor Center, and soon our city's tourism entity to share the building at 695 Harbor Street in a collaborative relationship. Additionally, we share 695 Harbor with our local radio station, the Morro Bay Historical Society, and the Morro Bay Resource Connection Office. Our chamber is a small and not at all wealthy group working for a loyal and growing membership base. We are a staff of 2, a volunteer board of directors, and a volunteer group of chamber ambassadors. With the addition of an economic development manager to city staff, it is clear that the city is committed to addressing issues of economic growth, business retention, and business expansion. The chamber represents the interests of our business community in these discussions. Sharing a roof with organizations tasked with making our city thrive both economically and socially is an arrangement that ensures positive outcomes for our community. In my experience, I come to work every day to an environment tasked with promoting the holistic well-being of Morro Bay, which I find fulfilling. At no time have I, nor have any of my staff or board, engaged in campaigning or any political action at 695 Harbor Street. We do not discuss city elections. We do not endorse candidates for office, and we do not use our offices for any purpose that does not align with our mission, which is stated on our website. I thank you for your time tonight and look forward to continued healthy communication with the city of Morro Bay that we have worked so hard to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Wow, thank you. Thanks for staying, Eric, and make your comments. Appreciate it. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back for discussion. And John, you want to lead off?
Thank you for bringing this forward. I think you have opened Pandora's box, but appropriately. So therefore, box be opened, and I'm happy to participate in at least giving you my opinion on some issues that might be considered in the future in terms of generalities for use of facilities and or other items that have either indirect or direct costs to the city by special interest groups. How's that for a generalization? I did a lot of research and I pulled, and I'll give it to you, Madam Clerk, for the staff, 2 cities' policies that I thought were quite excellent. I will not read them in detail, but they do have essential components that I think are important, such as the specific criteria that the city uses to determine if an entity or a special interest group is going to have the ability to receive direct or indirect services that have a cost associated with that as provided by the city. Number 2, the individual who is empowered to make the decision. Number 3, the generalities associated with that have to do with choosing which criteria have to be met in order to qualify, and there are exclusionary criteria as well. It's very tight. I think it's time to tighten up. But again, I don't want to take time to read all of the details unless that's what you're looking for tonight.
I'm happy to review it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm on board, but the general point that I wanted to make is just because an organization does something that adds benefit to a community member does not mean that the community has a responsibility, the community being the city, I should say, the city has a responsibility to provide through either direct or indirect costs a benefit to that entity. And I think out there's an expectation by a large number of groups that because those services are provided, that that's going to happen. I also think that there are a number of open gates where they may well go to one individual or another and ask for assistance, and inadvertently somebody says, yes, sure, go ahead and use this, and you may or may not know about it or find out about it too late. And so I think it has to be very tight. There must be evidence of ability to perform with regard to liability insurance. And number 3, The benefits that the city will receive have to be equal to the dollar value of the direct and indirect costs that are received by the entity. Number 4, there must be a written agreement. That's the essentials of the document I'm going to hand to you. That's many more pages than that. So hopefully that helps. That's my opinion. And I'm looking forward to seeing something come back.
Thanks, John. Noah?
Yes, thank you. And this is another one of those items that seems to always kind of be coming back since I've been on the council. It's like we've never really quite been able to resolve this yet, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic that we're on track right now. And it's important to do because I think it's taken up quite a bit of staff and council time over the years, and that's one of the things I'd like to see with a new updated policy is the ability for it to be implemented, fairly clear to be understood, and then as you said, and I think everyone else will say, it's fair. And so I do note that we have identified the Adopt a Park policy as something in our goals that we'd like to see. I'm interested in, if possible, to wrap as many things together into one document, but I recognize too that might not be possible. It might make more sense in some ways to break this out. I think Recreation and Parks recommendations and the parameters are good, and I'd like to see that worked on off of those and what we pick up tonight. And just in terms of meeting space alone, I find that can be somewhat of a weighty item in accumulation if you look at larger spaces like this. But in some cases, like with the studio room at the community center, for example, sometimes these groups that are really contributing a lot to the community really just need a place to sit down and talk. And we're pretty limited on that, whether you're looking privately or within the city government. So I think I agree with Mr. Heading about the idea of tightening up. But I also want to make sure that we're careful about how we're tightening up. And a lot of times just the ability for the community to get together and meet, that's a pretty modest thing when you're talking about tables and chairs in a room like that. So I'd like to keep that in mind as we go forward and not all of a sudden become the iron fist of holding these facilities and not allowing these really important community groups to get together and get creative and work for us.
And Councilmember Spluckler, you did inquire with me today about part of this issue, and I noted for you that, and a lot of people maybe don't know this, but the small conference room that has 12 to 15 chairs in it is free to use for the community. And
great example.
It always has been. I know that also, I think we've offered up the conference room at 695 Harbor Street, which is under the control of the city now as well as the city annex building right next to City Hall. There's meeting space, and we're happy to work with groups on potential use there as well.
And the conference area, did you say 690? At 695 Harbor, yeah, in the chamber building.
And I think, just to close my comments, I think that's going to be part of the value of this is the information about the small meeting space at the community center. I didn't realize that was available to anyone. But if we can put some parameters around this and make sure it's clear to everyone, let the groups review it as we're going through the process, I think we're going to come up with something that, for the most part, is agreeable and really doesn't restrict a lot of the great work that's being done, but gives us all better structure.
And in this process, we'll get to go through in the rules for a space like that. We'll probably have, once a month, twice a month. But the other thing we want to protect against is a group that reserves that room for 3 hours every morning, every workday, and says it's free and that's my room, and so this is really good conversation.
Great. Okay, Matt? I'll turn to Matt over here.
So I guess what we're talking about is doing a fair bit of reverse engineering. You're looking at the identified groups that have been receiving these benefits over the years. And one thing it seems what you're doing, Sam, is identifying what these groups are bringing to the city and categorizing them as you're reverse engineering it. And so likewise doing that in terms of identifying the parameters that we're all kind of talking about. be it co-sponsors or partnerships, and then going back and we could identify, and as part of going forward with this, and I don't know if you've come up with this idea, but identifying the various services that we're talking about, these meeting spaces, and putting it out there to the general public and saying, all right, you groups have been doing this for X amount of years under these provisions. Here's what the city offers. And then, recategorizing or recontracting out with those people in a fair bit. And so you're going to be going in backwards motion to set up something moving forward with those existing bodies. But you're thinking about that already, yes?
That's a good way to put it. And I think what it comes down to is, yes, we're looking at what they provide now, and so the question becomes, is what they provide now of a value that, this is totally a policy decision from council, is that something that deserves free or reduced use of a space?
And then looking at our goals moving ahead that we've already identified as council, and then identifying those groups and seeing like Adopt a Park, that goes underneath some of the going forward goals. So, okay, I'm with you. Okay, that's all my comments.
Christine?
Okay, great. I think loved hearing everybody's comments so far. Before I forget, I would like to just take a minute and Sam, and I appreciate you publicly apologizing for just a little bit of confusion over the Echo Rotary insurance and situation. And I think that, what maybe seemed like a small thing to staff is kind of sometimes much bigger to a community group that is, working very hard to make a difference. So I appreciate you I appreciate your public apology to that group and understanding that, sometimes we don't have all the facts, and we certainly search to get the facts. So what I see are three things that were happening now, and I would love to have them clarified. As one, we have a partnership policy, so that's like an entity that sits by itself. The second thing I see is a sponsor policy. What we haven't talked about yet was, what if we wanted to get a sponsor for the 4th of July? So how would you go about doing that? Or, would you ask Albertsons, for example, for $5,000, would they sponsor the main stage at the 4th of July and get their banner there? We don't really have a way to do that for city events. So I know we are somehow probably getting sponsors maybe for Rock to Pier. I don't know. But at some point it might be worthwhile considering how we would fit that in.
Sure. And I'll say, so typically the reason why you have a policy regarding sponsors is to determine who you want to partner with. Because in some cases you want to be careful about who you're partnering with.
Exactly.
But I think nothing precludes us now from going to Albertsons and saying, we would love to have $5,000 from you, and we'll put a banner up at the park while we have 4th of July. Nothing stops us from doing that, except for maybe a values judgment about what the organization is.
Sure. Okay, great. But I think that's something that it may not come back in the partnership policy, or it may. It's just something that's out there that I know it's been mentioned before, but we've never really nailed down. And then the third thing I see, just in what we're talking about, what we have in front of us tonight, is this shoulder season events. That's really what you're talking about when you're talking about that shoulder season policy that we're currently calling co-sponsorship. It seemed to me that's an event-driven idea to bring people here in the shoulder season. That's what it says. And I just remind us that in the past, we used to give general fund money. $40,000 went to events, and we would be distributed through the T-bid system, but we used to give certain particular money to events in the community. We did not say that was a startup for 2 years or 3 years. We never asked T-bid to make those determinations, but we do have a history of supporting events that bring people to town and would, help us with sales tax revenue and TOT. So that's another thing to consider, but really looking at that co-sponsoring as being something that's kind of event-driven versus a partnership policy, which may not be event-driven.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Yeah, so I see those as three things that we have going on here. The other thing is I consider like a 2-year contract versus 5 years with groups, just because, things turn over quickly, so I wouldn't want to, I don't know, it depends on staff time really and time of the organization, but I wouldn't want to let it go too long. Project Surf Camp, would we have an MOU with them? Is that better? Like we have an MOU with the seniors, but that's because we have historically been involved with the seniors in construction of the community center, so maybe we don't need something that formal, but what's the difference between an MOU and a contract letter? So
we did have we do have a contract with the seniors, and then an MOU clarifying that contract.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a bit of an interesting situation.
Okay, so there may be some organizations where we'd rather have an MOU but again, that's kind of complicated, but there may be some of those partnerships that do need to be really tightened up. So Adopt a Park, definitely clarify Adopt a Park. And when I look at the Adopt a Park groups, there may be some that we could offer a benefit of hosting their organizational meetings. So if they need a space to meet, then they adopt a park and they get so many hours per month for their organizational meetings, their functional meetings. Not an event they want to have, that would be something different. But if it's, again, going in that small conference room, and the reason it's free is probably because it's like a tomb in there. There's like no natural light. And then you get in it, but you do get in and out of your meetings really quickly in that room. But it's a great, so, if it's giving that space up, then that would be that's not something that I think, the city is going to be losing revenue over. So certainly I would look for you to come back with things like what are benefits to the Adopt a Park folks that are, that make sense. And they would also be able to give you input on that. Some of the groups may not need a place to meet, like Morbay Yacht Club. Clearly they probably meet at the yacht club, but others don't. So look for clarity there. Appreciate looking at that legally too. Our new working relationship with tourism marketing, also that'll be interesting. We haven't been integrated with that group as closely as we will be moving forward. So some of this co-sponsorship with the events, I talked about the $40,000. Sometimes we came out of general fund. It will be interesting to see what will develop as we become closer working relationship with tourism marketing. Wonder if we could get the information, and I'll ask Mr. Pannoni. So if Mr. Heading gives something to Sam, can we all get that too, just out of curiosity, to see what that says?
Yes, you can all get that.
Okay, so he can just give that to the city clerk and she can distribute it to us? Okay. And then one last thing, and those are kind of specific things, and I hope you were looking for that level of input.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and I would say that it's always good to take a look back. I went to look at our minutes from March 11, 2014, when we first passed the policy, and basically we all said that things like consistency would be favorable. It's good to begin with at least a policy, then we have the ability to modify it, and we should send this back to Rec and Parks for review in a year. So, we really didn't know if that policy, the one we have adopted, we weren't sure how that was going to work. So I think it's good to see that, we're still looking for a good solution. And then I think it's just to keep in mind what we've all said, that, the community center where a lot of these activities happen, or any city building, these are buildings for the community. So, thinking about how we can utilize them to ensure that folks doing work in our community to improve our community, is there a way they can meet and make some of their organizational duties, enable them to do better things for the city and have a better experience overall as specifically for our nonprofits. So I'm glad you asked. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for, I guess, a heads up coming your way, the TBID Advisory Board has looked at the potential 16-17 budget already, which includes $60,000 in general fund money for the first time based on your adopted resolution. The way the recommendation from them will actually be regarding event grants, mostly for that money this next year. Only about $10,000 is for administrative costs, which we're really happy about, that we can maximize those general fund dollars for event support.
So thanks. Great comments from everyone. Wanted to revisit the Adopt a Park policy because, I know we have, when you compare it to Project Surf Camp, they've got a trailer that, that's part. I don't think we've worked out that detail. We store it on city property. Same with Morbay and Bloom. There's a trailer that, it's stored behind Chamber at this point. I think some of the other things, whether it's Morbay and Bloom or any one of the Adopt a Park programs, if they're taking on a large project, then there's a lot of material that they have to dispose of, and usually that takes some coordination and planning, pre-planning, which I think there's a good relationship, to coordinate that. But I'm just pointing out some of the details that are coordinated efforts that might be helpful in the Adopt a Park policy, amongst other things. But I think we covered whether or not we can combine, policies, whether it's partnership or co-sponsorship. And then the 2-year kind of startup clause. There's been a lot of stuff discussed here, and it seems like we're throwing a lot of darts on the board to think about. Which I guess I'm expecting that we will go back to Rec and Park and any other stakeholder outreach to get information input on that. I'm expecting that's where we would go first. Do you have any comments to that?
Or TBID.
Or TBID,
so I think
right?
For some of these event sort of things, that would more naturally go T-bid the Reckham Parks, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess just on a note, after talking about the free conference room, just thinking, I know we're developing our website, but perhaps, on that's probably something maybe it is, and we just don't know it. But I'll go look at that as well. But that was good to know. Other than that, I think there's been a lot of information, including what Mr. Heading and Christine and everybody else on council has been said. So I think we're good to go. It'd just be nice to understand that we're going to go out and do some outreach based on this information and work it through the process that way.
Always. Yep.
Yep. Thank you. With that, any other comments? No? None? That'll conclude item C6, and we'll move on to future agenda items. Any future agenda items?
Yeah. Do we have to do anything for the Y green? Is that what it was?
Do we have to agendize the PACE thing, or was there clear enough direction to if more that comes, we could just put that on consent? I kind of felt we were good on that. Okay, good. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the meeting at 11:35. Thank you.